But for people who are trying to decide between chemopreservation and cryonics, what would you tell them?
Oh, that's really hard. I think that has to do with, your view of how you want to be brought back to. Cryopreservation, we brought back cells, we brought back organs, we brought back limbs, and we have ways of testing the functionality of tissue, the viability of tissue. With chemopreservation, those brought back anything. So it's more theoretically superior, but it's not, is it practically superior? It kind of depends on your mindset. My son was diagnosed with high functioning autism, like level 1 autism, but he has extreme ADHD. Putting him in school was like putting a bomb in the school. He like shut down the whole class. So I preempted this by saying, okay, I'm going to take him to the psychologist. She'd talk about how he'd document how he'd take things off the shelf. He's like, can I break this? She said, no, put it back.
He's like looking for destruction. What have you taken?
MDMA was disastrous for me.
What? Okay, you're weird.
Disastrous? It was so bad. It was so funny, but it was so bad. Like, I was actually in San Francisco, funny enough. And then what ended up happening was I felt this like internal cold that was so cold.
Carrie, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of just never giving up.
Yeah.
I've just had so many like setbacks, but just having the strength to like continuously grind on the human cryopreservation project and never giving up despite challenges, despite feeling like I don't have enough.
Do you want to die? What if people in the future could be brought back from the dead? Should you have your body preserved in that case, either by being frozen or chemically preserved? These are the kind of questions that weirdos like me and Carrie Radomski think about. Carrie and I were Facebook friends, and we finally met up for the first time in person last year. We had a great conversation. Carrie is a high agency, competent woman with a lot of interesting things to say. She was back in town for a longevity conference, and I was lucky enough to be able to sit down and record this interview with her. Carrie and I talked about biostasis, cryonics versus cryopreservation, personal identity, consciousness, AI safety, info hazards, rationality, parenting, music, movies, and more. Please enjoy. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give me those tasty dopamine hits before AGI wipes us all off the map. And let me know in the comments if you would ever be uploaded, if you would ever consider preserving your body, and if so, through which method. Thank you so much for watching.
Carrie, can you tell me your background and what you're currently working on?
Background, I have a kind of a various backgrounds, I guess. I've worked in many different industries, but currently I'm working in biostasis. So I'm a director of multiple organizations. One of them is Biomedical Research and Longevity Society, and they've been responsible for the majority of cryonics specific research and development, and also funding of infrastructure for the emergency arm of biostasis in the United States for a number of decades. So we usually distribute about 8 or 9 million each year. And over the past decade, we've distributed 100 million.
So you've been like carrying, or your organization has been carrying like the research for this whole time.
Yes.
Basically.
Add infrastructure.
Yeah.
Without BRLS, like people currently in suspension would have had like a lower quality of care.
Yeah.
Because they subsidize all these standby organizations. Just one of them, Suspended Animation, they do all the full body patients in the United States, and they run out of a $600,000 a year loss each year by design, because we're just subsidizing everybody.
I think it's cool when, especially on these like sort of outside of normal society fields, like there's so much room for impact because no one else is doing enough for it. So like if for example, like you guys were funding cancer research, it would be like a drop in the bucket because there's so much money that's going to cancer research.
That's why I work in this field, and
yeah.
I'm also building a standby organization in Canada because the emergency aspect of cryonics is not very well, I guess, resourced or developed in this country, and I have unique knowledge and abilities that very few people possess, because very few people know how to actually do the practical aspect of grabbing a person and replacing their blood with cryoprotectant and then bring them down in a like effective manner.
For the normies, could you define biostasis?
Biostasis is the preservation of specifically people, very focused on preserving the brain in order to revive them with future technology. So we want to allow the person to survive in the future, even though modern medicine could not save them today.
So what's the difference between biostasis and cryonics?
Cryonics is just within biostasis. There's like two main camps. There's chemopreservation and then traditional cryonics.
So it's like biostasis is a superset of these things, and then
Yeah, we include both because I think at this time we're kind of at a junction where people aren't sure
Yeah.
which one has more merit,
Yeah.
that which methodology has more merit. I mean, they both do use low temperatures. Like even aldehyde stabilized cryoprotection, they're in refrigeration temperatures. And one major company, Sparks Brain Preservation, they're intending to move their 4 degrees brains to negative 20 degrees.
And Cryonics has a much longer history.
Oh yeah, Cryonics has been operating in the United States for over 50 years.
Yeah. So I guess we can get into, why are you working in cryonics versus chemical preservation?
I'm not necessarily working in just one.
Okay. But you're signed up for,
I'm signed up for Tomorrow Biostasis, Outdoor, and Cryonics Institute.
this is like, I love that. When I first met you, I was like, oh, which one are you signed up for? And you're like, all of them.
All of them, and I may even get a chemopreservation contract just to cover my
Wow.
bases.
Yeah.
That's a little extreme.
I like people who take things seriously, though. It's like, whatever.
Yeah, I've doubled down, I've tripled down.
You're like the person who's like, I'm Catholic, Muslim, I'm just covering all of, I mean, if those weren't mutually exclusive, and they're all sending you to hell for just not picking, but I like that.
I just consider that charity because somebody's gonna have my body at some point, and they're gonna have to.
They're going to compete? They're going to compete to get you.
Yeah, people say that, but I think that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
If I pass away in Europe, obviously Tomorrow gets me, and if I pass away in America, obviously Outboard gets me.
Yeah.
CI understands that they're not the main one, but they do have my money. They have my full money. I guess with CI, I have not executed a patient contract, but the reason why they have my money is because in an emergency case where somebody I know has passed away, I don't want, I'll just tell CI, hey, look, you have my money. Can you please take this person? And then there won't be any delay in payment. So yeah.
So you're just like parking some money with them in case.
In case there's an emergency. Yeah, that's nice. The CI is the lowest cost option.
Yeah.
28,000 US.
Yeah. If somebody in Michigan dies, she could have a. Have you visited them?
I haven't, but they do have their 50th anniversary conference this year. So
Oh, cool.
probably should show up to that.
I visited, I think, right after my oldest daughter was born. So I think she was like the youngest person they ever had
Wow.
in there. So it was cool to, just like looking at the tanks and stuff.
So I guess I didn't answer your question.
Yes.
I am an angel investor in Tomorrow Biostasis and angel and seed investor in Tomorrow Biostasis. I think they're doing a great job. But I'm also an investor in Nectome, which is a chemopreservation company, and also an investor in Hybrid, which is also the newest chemopreservation company, I guess.
Where are they based?
Germany.
Okay.
They're actually here, and I'm supposed to speak
Okay.
to them or meet them in person at the time. And I'm also invested in CryoPets, which is a traditional cryoprotection company that focuses on pets.
Is that Celine's thing, or she does the
No, she does the Love
living-
Shed.
Okay.
I
with
was age
pets.
reversal at Dawson.
Okay.
Brave. Her company's called Brave.
So you just posted a piece about personal identity
Yes.
and cryonics. I'm friends with Aurelia.
Yes.
I think Nectome is cool. When I was interviewing them, we had some disagreements over personal identity. People can really get into the weeds. Like even when you posted your thing, I like Max. I think he's in Germany, who posted like asking me these questions. Maximilian.
Oh yeah, Maximilian.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I understood what he was trying to say to me. That's the thing. I read.
I didn't have time to read. I'm sorry. I didn't have time to read the whole thing. But I appreciate his engagement. But yeah, because I wanted to. I was gonna see if I could parse it fast enough to ask you follow-up questions, but I didn't quite understand what you use.
But the thing is, when I watched your initial interview with
Yeah.
Relia's Song, generally known as Robert McIntyre, in that interview, it was Robert McIntyre's.
Yeah.
It's interesting because your views on personal identity are very close to my own, like what we care about. So I was like, we don't actually have that much disagreement. And I don't know if if Aurelia understands, qualia or what qualia is.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I think part of the reason why I never got into the chemopreservation camp earlier than I have is because they had such radically different ideas about personal identity than the rest of the cryonicist.
Yeah.
Like we have more like typical understanding of our own personhood or identity that they just don't seem to share. Like I talked to the chief scientific officer of Nectome, Boris. He's a very smart guy. In Switzerland for like 3 hours where he pointed out everything that was wrong with traditional cryopreservation. And I was like, wow, chemopreservation sounds like a better bet because they're preserving the ultrastructure. It might actually be traceable. What do you even have to bring back if the information is lost? Even though we preserve more viability. But then he would also have these like views on personal identity that I just strongly disagree with, which made me a bit more suspicious about the chemopreservation camp, because they're like, later on they adopted the view that biological revival or in situ repair was possible with their technique, but before they would always say that's nonsense and you should just accept that a copy of you is you. And you know, the example you gave in your interview where you said, okay, so say there's a copy of me, and someone had to torture somebody, would you pick yourself or would you pick your copy?
Yeah.
It's like, obviously, you would not want to be the one being tortured.
Yes. Because I think
If
where
they get cut, I'm not going to feel it.
exactly.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
copy. And I value the copy. Obviously, this is a sentient human
Yes.
being.
Yes.
But what's also bizarre in this interview is the teleporter experiment, where one copy gets erased and another one gets created on Mars or something like that. He seems to think that it's not a big deal that if there's multiple copies of you,
Yes.
one of them gets killed, it's not a big deal. I'm like,
Yes.
well, that's still a sentient, you know, being that's
Yeah.
able to suffer, that has a life, you
Yes.
know, that life is inherently valuable, consciousness is inherently valuable according to my value system. So that's still murder. Just because there's not a copy doesn't mean that that other copy doesn't have any rights.
Yeah.
Or my original or copy or whatever doesn't have any worth.
Yes.
And I just couldn't understand.
I think because a lot of people in personal identity debates get into the weeds over, oh, if it's you, is the copy you? And I don't really care about that. Like, I'm perfectly happy to accept, like, okay, it's me or not. But there is a difference where I have my own qualia.
Yeah.
And my copy has another, like, I don't even care which one is real. I care about my qualia. And like you say, I also care about the copy. But to me, it's like people, Aurelia and people like Aurelia, I think they mostly in these discussions focus on like, I care about my memories and experiences and things like that. So if my copy has like 99.99%, then I'm perfectly willing to be shut down or killed if they spun up 1,000 copies of me or 2 copies of me.
Yeah, but most
then-
people aren't.
Yes, yeah. So I'm super not.
Yeah.
So I'm amazed. It's like I put in my article, it's like the bike comic where it's like, oh, someone stole my bike, but at least they're happy with it. And I'm like, well, what about me? Like,
Yeah, we're
just because my copy is having a great time and I'm being shut down, like killed, like I'm not cool with that.
yeah, even if I am the copy, I don't have
Yeah.
a problem with being killed,
Yes,
honestly.
yes, exactly. Even if I was the copy, I'm like, well, hold up. I don't care that that's the real one. I
Yeah,
still
loss of life is loss.
Yes. So
Even a copy's life is still a loss of life.
So I get if you support, I guess, suicide in whatever circumstances, and then Aurelia's okay with that for herself, as long as the copies are out there, then I guess, that would be fine. But I don't know. I think that the thing that I would be a question mark for signing up is that according to Aurelia and others, is that cryonics as it is like fucked and you can't revive people. And, you have to get, Aurelia's like, you have to do it in like under 11 minutes or something.
Oh, but the chemopreservation camps don't even agree with each other. There's like
Yeah.
Sparks brain preservation, and they'll just do it. It can be days, and they're still saying you may be able to bring the person back. They just have such like just incommensurable
Yeah.
statements about what's possible
Yeah.
about repair in the future. I actually have a lot of sympathy, like even like within cryonics, I would say that I'm more like 50-50 chemopreservation at this point, but I think that because I started talking about this a little bit earlier about how they're just approaching it from like 2 different scientific paradigms. Now, the chemopreservation people think that, okay, so all your memories, as far as we understand, according to modern neuroscience, is stored in the structure of the brain. The structures are preserved with chemopreservation. Therefore, it makes more logical sense to go this route, because all that matters is information. The information is preserved here better. That's all we need to do. The end. Cryopreservation people are saying, okay, so we have all this data about how to keep cells alive. We have viability assays. We have functionality tests. We can bring back small mammal organs. Right? That's the reason why I signed up for Cryonics. That experiment where he took a rabbit kidney, he perfused it with M22, which is a cryoprotectant use route for members, brought it down to negative 130 degrees. Then they rewarmed it, unloaded the cryoprotectants, reperfused it with blood, and then removed the other kidney and then made the rabbit live on the single kidney that was brought down to negative 130 and was able to survive. The organ was damaged. It's only like this small. So not to overstate it, I said, okay, in that case, cryonics just must be a scaling problem. We'll just do the same thing. It works in principle, or it works in theory. So therefore, we just need to do it to a larger organ and then just kind of scale up. And we don't have the technology to repair the damage of cryonics patients today, but maybe in the future we'll have better wound healing. We'll have better ways of preserving the cryonics patient. So all the testing that cryonics organizations have done is centered around like developments in organ preservation. So that involves, like I talked about this before, about like viability testing, functional testing. Like, does the tissue still work? Does it do what it's supposed to do? With chemopreservation, you can't do any of that. That category is completely excluded. So their standard of evidence, because they're holding the cryonics standard of, I guess, standard of evidence. So the cryonics ultrastructure is not as good as the chemo. Like, it simply isn't. Like, and also what's even worse about the cryonics industry, which I actually agree with the chemopreservation criticisms, like Ken Hayworth, he used to be an Alcor member. He famously dropped his Alpha membership and then he started like strongly criticizing the industry. He's actually right. They should have started focusing on checking the quality of their brain preservation way earlier than they did. This year, they published the, I forget the exact technical name now, ultrastructure and histological preservation of a mammalian brain with vitrification. And it's basically the cryopreservation of Dr. Stephen Cole's brain. And he was a Alcor patient, I believe it was in the year 2014. And it was sort of known that he was going to pass away. He got to the facility really quickly because he had some kind of cancer. His fiancée, Natalie Coles, was extremely supportive. She's in the cryonics community too. So her support actually enabled him to get like rapidly dealt with. And it was an ideal neuropreservation. They stored his brain in intermediate temperature storage, which isn't even commercially available. So that's like between somewhere in the negative 125 to negative 130. So that's actually more ideal, which is more costly to store because there's no need to go below negative 130. As you go below negative 130, you introduce more fracturing events for no good reason. So most people are stored at negative 196, so there's more fracture events. And they took a few biopsies of his brain. He was a charity case. He didn't have to pay for his cryopreservation because they were going to publish the study. Now, I first heard of the study in 2022 at Alcor's 50th anniversary conference. And I said, this is excellent. This is like the first time an actual cryonics patient, we can actually see what their brain looks like under SEM, scanning electron microscopy, and see the quality. But then it took another like 4 years to publish, and everyone's mad in the industry. Everybody that is invested in this project
Why did it take so
is
long?
mad. I think it's because they incorrectly prepared the sample for SEM. So it was like blurry, or they couldn't really see what was going on. So they had to redo it again.
Yeah.
And that apparently this is just technically challenging. And then it was found that the histology or light microscopy images look pretty good. It's like, okay, so they rehydrated his brain tissue and you can see that there's submembranes intact, the axons intact, neurons intact. You can kind of see, okay, there's some damage and distortion because of dehydration, but this is inferable. It's not traceable. It's not perfect, but it's like, it's not completely cooked.
Yeah.
It's not a complete disaster because
Has the key.
everybody was very worried, especially myself in Switzerland, because the chief scientific officer, Horace, was saying, look, obviously cryopreserved patient's brain is very shrunken because it's extremely dehydrated. All the cells are very shrunken. Like, how do you know that the cells being like squashed like this is not actually hiding catastrophic internal damage that you can't see? And you could just say, oh, well, when you rehydrate them, those bounce back and everything will be fine. Now, we can rehydrate the cells with today's technology, and they do kind of bounce back. So our thesis was correct. But they're like, oh, well, it's still not as good as chemopreservation, which is true. But we're talking about taking brain tissue that's been perfused with cryoprotectant, bringing it all the way to now to negative 130 or even further down. We have to rewarm it. And we have to unload the cryoprotectant, which is toxic. And then we could fix and scan and see how it looks. You know, how do we know that the rewarming and the unloading didn't cause more damages to cells? Meanwhile, chemically fixed patients, they're fixed, they take the sample, and then that's it. They don't need to rewarm. They don't need to unload the cryoprotectant. So you're not comparing apples to apples. The vitrified patient's brain in liquid nitrogen could be more intact and could be brought back more intact with future rewarming and unloading procedures that don't exist yet. So it's the rewarming and the loading that could introduce more damage. Like apples to apples would be like comparing the frozen state with the chemically fixed state, but we can't do that right now.
Yeah, the way I see it is that I would guess that you probably have better preservation with chemopreservation, but then you have like zero chance of, depending on your personal identity, of like this copy, like you say in your article, waking up. It's like, that's, they're going to, probably destructively upload it or whatever, or
they're saying that with like nanotechnology, they can undo all these like crosslinks between the proteins. Like, just for context, these are extremely strong covalent bonds and there's trillions of crosslinks. So the repair program, I think, would be like orders of magnitude harder than repairing cryonics patients, which are like mechanically damaged and I guess inferable. But like, how do you go in there and remove all these crosslinks? You need like extremely powerful technology.
Well, the future will be magic if it goes right.
The future can be magic.
Maybe.
Yeah, and they're saying that the information is better preserved. But actually, I'm kind of a little skeptical about that too, because when they cross-link proteins, and it does preserve the shape, and we think that memories and important stuff is stored in the shape of the protein, but it doesn't react with the fat. The fat is sort of also trapped in this matrix of crosslinks, but they do admit that they're not sure about the preservation of the actual fat in the brain. So that's why they take the additional step of refrigeration to try to preserve that fat. But there's a lot of uncertainty about how much or how important that is, because that is not as well preserved as the proteins that are being cross-linked. So that's one area where I would be like, I don't know, like,
yeah,
there's a lot of uncertainty. And another problem is with the chemopreservation, there is like chemical changes being introduced. And I don't know at what level or in what ways this could affect your memories too.
Yeah.
It's not like, because like recently they had this very interesting kind of uploading experiments. I don't know if you read about it, where
With the fly.
With a fly, yeah. So they have, I think, how many neurons did that fly have? Like 300,000 or?
I think so, yeah.
300,000 neurons. An emulation. Very impressive. Yeah, they think that proves that chemopreservation can preserve an individual well enough that they can scan that and then upload them. But I don't think that actually proves as much as what people are trying to say. I'm not saying that their scientific team misrepresented it, but they didn't upload an individual fly.
Yeah.
They uploaded a fly that had a lot of training data for fly-like behavior. They didn't train a specific fly on a specific task and then show that they retrieved this memory. Within cryonics, there's not been that experiment either. They did an experiment with sea aliens, like tiny worm, and they trained the worm on some tasks, and they had a control room that wasn't trained. Like, I don't know if it was a maze or what it was exactly anymore. And then they vitrified the worms, and then they brought back the worms and tried to see if they remembered how to do their task, and they were able to do that. That's Branko and Natasha Vita-Moore in like 2014 showed this. So that's kind of the level of experiment I would want to see. I don't. There's not been an experiment that shows that they're able to retrieve a like individualistic memory.
Yeah.
They're only able to show that they can retrieve hardwired fly-like behaviors, and they already have like this huge set of data for training and for validation.
Yeah.
They have not shown that they have preserved individual memory in a way that matters to me. And I will publish on this too, because there's some evidence that the cross-linking can kind of distort some things that are important for storage or memory creation. And also you can't even measure a lot of the things that show that your neurons are working. Like, there's a recent publication, German et al., Alexander German et al., and this was also featured in Nature magazine, where he did a cryopreserved mouse brain tissue, and then he was able to demonstrate that there was still ATP, which is important for showing that memory was preserved. Then this is a viability or no, functionality assay that you would not be able to perform with chemopreservation. So you took the brain tissue, you cryopreserved it with B3 or some kind of cryoprotectant, which is less expensive than F22, and he was able to rewarm, unload it, and then check ATP. Found that ATP was still available.
I think these things are interesting. It's like in neurology, you can have these different problems in the brain or in your genes, and then it translates to all these weird neurological disorders.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be, I mean, it'd be tragic, but it'd be interesting in the future, like, oh, if you have problems with, like preserving fat or doing all these things, and it translates into all these weird dysfunctions. Now, if everything goes well in the future is magic, I'm sure they'd be able to address some of those things. But I just think it'd be interesting to see how it would affect your memories or your function.
Yeah, so I would say with cryopreserved patients and the SEM images, all the damage is like very obvious. It's visible, mechanistic. But with chemopreservation, there could be damage that's more subtle. There could be chemical changes. Chemical signaling is still obviously part of the brain. Like, can it be affected by this? We don't know. We haven't retrieved an individual memory from an individual part of someone's brain using like this information. So I have no idea. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm on 50-50, like I said.
Yeah.
It's just hard to surrender an entire multiple categories of testing for a biological function and viability, and just sort of hope that the chemical changes don't affect your identity or memory.
But is it true that right now, if you're like going to die and doing that whole process, then you can do either cryonics or chemo. But as of right now, if you have an accident or whatever, you can't do chemo. You can only do cryonics.
Oh yeah, with Nectome, they only want to do medical assisted dying.
Yeah.
But you can still do chemo through Sparks. They'll take them.
Okay. So there is still that choice. So if somebody's watching this and they're like, oh, this is interesting, I want to sign up for one of these things, what would you tell them? Like, which one?
Well, if they're doing medically assisted dying, then they want to do chemo, I would go with Nectome.
Okay.
I think Nectome has really perfected their technique because they have invested a lot in doing this really quick.
Yes.
With Sparks, they do perfusion, but they're also relying on immersion vitrifixation. So they acknowledge that when they do perfusion, they cannot reach every part of the brain because they have some amount of ischemia. With Nectome, they're getting in there and doing the surgery really fast. I don't know how they claim that they can get in there, like do medium sternotomy, like saw through the sternum, cut into the heart, put a cannula in there in like 5 minutes or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I was like, have you done this in humans? They're like, well, we do it in pigs, and it's actually harder in pigs than in humans.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I think
this is like gruesome research, they're
I'm like, well, you do realize that, there's could be a lot of variation in people. Like, people have a lot of variation. I think there's less variation in pigs. So, like, you claim to be able to do this in 5 minutes. Well, what if you go in there and the person already had, previous heart surgery, but they're like, well, in that case, we would maybe do the carotids and cut into the carotids. We'll perfuse and just focus on the head, or, even femoral. We'll do both femoral, which is in the groin area, and the carotid. We'll figure that out, kind of thing.
But for people who are trying to decide between chemopreservation and cryonics, what would you tell them?
Oh, that's really hard.
Okay. So you'd have to get more into the weeds.
Yeah. I think that has to do with, your view of how you want to be brought back to.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have another article that's under review that I'm going to publish on Substack, which examines, the science behind chemopreservation versus cryopreservation, and talks more about the types of testing that's available to cryopreserved tissue. Because with cryopreservation, we brought back cells, we brought back organs, we brought back limbs, and we have ways of testing the functionality of the tissue, the viability of the tissue. With chemopreservation, nobody's brought back anything. Yeah. So it's more theoretically superior, but it's not. Is it practically superior? It kind of depends on your mindset. How do you think people will be repaired? Do you want to be uploaded?
Yes.
Like, I would say if people really don't have any attachment or idea, or they feel highly confident that their identity is substrate independent, I would go with chemopreservation, probably. But if you're agnostic like me, maybe it's wrong, but I just don't know if my identity is substrate independent or not. I'm not an information reductionist. I don't know.
Okay.
And since I don't know, I just want to pick the more conservative option because I
Yes.
don't want to gamble my life on
Yes.
theoretic ideas.
Yes. I went to the fly uploading event they had
Oh, you did?
at Mox.
That must have been amazing.
It was like half of it was amazing and half of it I think was like scary.
Oh,
Michael was giving his talk about, the flies.
yeah.
A lot of it was at a like, Mox is like a rationality AI safety EA space. And so he was talking about like people were asking about the fly suffering and he was saying, oh, I think it was like this fly was like thirsty before, so it could in the world be perpetually thirsty. And so some of the people were sad about the fly potentially suffering. And yeah, I don't know. The whole thing was interesting. I think everybody was or not shocked, but skeptical and amused by his like egregious timeline of like, okay, we did, partial fly mind upload 2026, full human upload 2028. If we were like, okay,
Okay, man.
but like I get you gotta
2028?
hype, but
A full brain emulation? Like, what? This
So
is
I
like
think,
completely outside of what.
yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, it's like you better be getting some things going soon. But it's also, I think I'm like very concerned about S risk, like suffering of.
Oh, actually, that's like extremely valid.
Yeah.
I just recalled something I want to add to the chemo versus
Yes.
cryo debates. Cryonics is also, I would say, relying more heavily on institutional preservation of the organizations because you have to keep them in liquid nitrogen. Chemopreservation is a little bit more forgiving. Like it can sit in room temperature and not be like catastrophically destroyed.
Yeah.
While cryopreserved patients would just be completely dead if
Yeah.
we out of liquid nitrogen. So it depends on your view on how society will progress and how well these institutions will survive as well.
That's a good point.
Like with chemopreservation, you don't want to leave it in room temperature, but you have a little bit of allowance to try to like find a fridge or something.
Well, I think Aurelia said that you can just leave bodies out or your loved ones' bodies, for like, I forget if it was days or something.
Yeah, like days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which I
that's
guess
fair.
is cool for funerals or whatever. But I don't know. I think to me, for like a young, healthy person who's like who's conscientious and won't get into accidents, I see all of these somewhat as a moot point given, I'm a doomer about AI. Yeah, I think suffering risks are just so like, would you upload yourself if it was non-destructive uploading?
Well, okay, that's another one of Aurelia's arguments, which I was pretty entertained by. She said that uploading is the only way you survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if the doomer risk,
Yeah.
you just be part of the cloud. That's the way you survive. Now, I'm not against that. I don't know. Maybe not. I would like make copies of myself. I would upload myself if it
Yeah.
wasn't destructive. Like I'll take all the options
Yeah.
because I'm agnostic. Maybe a copy is me in all relevant aspects. Maybe I have the wrong medic physical understanding. Like I'm just very agnostic about all these questions. So I would make a copy myself. I would upload myself. I would do all. But there is higher S risk. I agree with you. So maybe my position is actually rational.
Well, I think because with uploading, I'm worried about losing control. Right now in my poor meat body, it's like, I could just die. But at least I wouldn't be suffering after that. And so it's like greater risk and greater reward, but much greater risk where if, I'm not in control of whoever's controlling the cloud, or people could spin up copies and, mild to high key torture or something like that. Like it would just be really like literal hell.
Yeah, literal hell. Like people that go into cryopreservation today, they might be underestimating their higher S risk in the future because in the future, there could be greater technologies for good but also greater technologies for evil. So like the torture that exists today could be like way less worse than the torture that exists in the future.
Yeah.
So that's a risk that I'm willing to take.
I think I'd always want to have the option to die because, in a real hellish S risk scenario where you can't die,
Yeah.
that would be.
That is maybe
Pretty
I'm
sucky.
not fully understanding the S risk. I acknowledge there is.
I'm not saying it's
more.
high, but I'm just saying it's so, it's sort of.
It's
like
so
absolute-
bad that
Yeah.
any possibility may make it moot to be revived.
Yeah, I don't know.
The suffering could be so great that you can't take any percentage the
Yeah.
risk of being in that situation.
Yeah.
I understand this argument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, as an aside, I wanted to say I like the picture that you use in the personal identity thing.
Yeah, it was AI.
Yeah.
And,
Mm.
I took a normal picture.
No.
AI did that thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which AI did you use?
I think GPT, the new one.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about AI?
I feel like I'm not as well informed about this subject,
Yeah.
but I do have certain opinions, but it might take a little while to blow into them.
Are you like optimistic about the future or pessimistic or like what's your
I don't know. P Doom is probably between 5 and 50%.
Okay. I mean, that's sort of pretty good. That's not. It's funny because for me, if people are like, "Oh, I have a 10% or 20%," because I'm used to talking to Doomers, I'm like, "Oh wow, that's actually pretty good." I'm like, I mean, in real life, like in a normal situation, like 10% chance of like Doom is like horrific. But then I think because I've accepted a baseline that's so high, it's just like
Yeah, but
5
are
to
you a Yudkowskian with
I'm not that bad. Well, it depends on what you mean. Like I'm not like 99%, but I just think it's more likely than not.
So you've read like a lot of his writings. See, I'm not actually. I don't know if I would identify as a rationalist. I have a lot of rationalist friends.
Yeah.
Same with EA. Like I have a lot of
Yeah.
EA friends. I support some of their causes. Like
Yeah.
maybe not shrimp welfare. I don't really care about that. But like,
I know. I have to say, I'm sorry. I don't give a shit about. I think a
don't
lot of
know.
it's like OCD,
it's still. It's just not. I just don't understand.
but you don't hear about shrimp enough.
I eat the shrimp.
What about? It's because you're Asian, Carrie. That's why you and Indian internally don't like. It's like talking to the Japanese about fish suffering. No, he gets a fuck. Yeah, I feel like any resources given to shrimp is resources away from humans, and I'm a speciesist when it comes to.
Yeah, a speciesist, or like you just care about things that.
Well, what about mammals? You care about mammal suffering?
Yeah, so I want to be a better person than
Nice.
I am.
Okay,
But I'm
I
not,
get it.
I'm not vegan. But I could see that they have a superior more argument. I just haven't implemented this into my life, or I don't have the control to, or something. Maybe I'm too selfish because I think like animal protein is more bioavailable
Yeah,
for protein.
yeah. I think non-vegans are healthier, but I do think vegans have a moral superiority that they.
Yeah, I think are morally superior. Yeah.
But there is the argument that people will use about like if you're doing like EA or good work, that you need the animal to consume animals to do better work, and that you would be less efficient at your work if you were struggling with a vegan diet. So some people justify it
Yeah.
that way. But my problem with this is that being like, oh, you're friends with rationalists or friends with EA, then people would say like, oh, you're you adjacent. But then adjacent has its own like.
Yeah, I would say I'm adjacent. Sure.
Okay.
Why not? But
saying
I have-
adjacent things is like, oh, I'm interested in like woo bullshit.
what?
Yeah.
Like what does that even mean?
Like some people who are rationalist adjacent or like adjacent to them means like I'm more open to like woo bullshit things. So that's why I wish there was a better term.
Well, I'm just spending like 80% of my energy on biostasis related activities and like maybe 20% on AI stuff for like understanding what's going on with the world.
But you can still be a rationalist and just not.
But the thing is, I haven't read many of Yudkowsky's work.
But he doesn't have a monopoly. I mean, I guess there's the culture, but you can be a rationalist or like want to be rational without even knowing anything about it.
Yeah, but I come more from the like mainstream philosophy side
Yeah.
than anything. I have a minor in philosophy, so I studied like formal philosophy. I study specifically philosophy of science, some metaphysics.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It helped you for these.
Yeah, for trying to think through some of these problems.
But when you see the future, like what do you picture?
I don't know. It's very unknown.
Yeah.
Like, it's very strange because, we have like artificial general intelligence right now, but like my life remains largely unchanged.
Yeah.
And if AI transforms society, great. If it ends us all, that's kind of sad. But I know that what I'm doing day to day, I should just continue to be doing regardless of the situation.
But does it affect your decisions at all? Like, or like if you're talking to parents and they're like, oh, I wonder what college, or talking about college with kids or high school. Like to me, when people are talking about that, I'm like, my kids aren't going to go to college.
Yeah, my husband's more adamant about that.
No, I mean college won't exist. I don't mean that I'm not. Okay, so you mean adamant, like he's like.
He thinks that's going to be completely useless.
Okay.
The college will be useless. Maybe it will exist,
Yeah.
but it'll probably be useless.
But what are your timelines? Like you say, you already have AGI right now, but until it's like things are radically transformed or.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I can picture us having AGI right now, but I still have to go to the store and buy groceries with money.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So
Or
it's
get delivery,
changed.
groceries. Yeah.
so maybe it's not changed our economy or way of life that much, and maybe it'll take longer to be like embedded in our day-to-day life.
But do you see us having like transformational AI or like even the singularity within the next couple of years?
No.
Okay. So you have like long time left. They're going to take a while. What about cruise mile?
Wait, what is this?
2030 singularity.
I mean, I'd be overjoyed if this was the case. I mean, maybe I'm too not optimistic or I'm not paying close enough attention.
So you think it'll take a while?
Benefit the average person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or to kill the average person. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if it doesn't happen, then I would have been doing the correct thing, which is exactly what I'm doing right now.
Well, I'm not saying for what action you should be taking. I'm just saying how you see like things. Because here everybody's like, okay, we're not even going to make 2030. It's like we're going to get recursive self-improvement 2028, maybe 2027.
But like, I'm not that convinced by a lot of the doomer arguments either.
Yeah. You mean in that it wouldn't be bad if we got recursive self-improvement?
It could just be narrow and controlled by us.
Okay.
And we may not lose control about it in like a utility maximizer kind of way.
Yeah.
I'm kind of skeptical about those arguments. Yeah, I could go into it a little bit.
Yeah. Make me feel better, Carrie.
You heard of all the buzz of Claude Mythos, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was many years ago. This is not my idea. This is the rationalist adjacent friend pointed this out. Eliezer Yudkowsky said that there's no weak pivotal acts. Basically, a weak pivotal act would be sort of a narrow power that's something like burn all GPUs or does something to the world that would basically end the possibility of artificial superintelligence and also prevent other groups from also implementing artificial superintelligence. Claude Mythos could potentially be in that category, like something like that. Maybe not right now, but in the future, it could be
Where
a
it could
very
be something
narrow
Yeah.
AI
Yeah.
that just sufficiently disables all competitors so that they're just unable to continue. Like they'll inject some kind of cyber or some sort of virus or code that just like dismantles all the other models, or like put something inside their weight or in something inside their source code. And there's various like aspects to this argument, but basically if an AI isn't connected to the internet and constantly getting information, then it'll fall behind quickly. So you can't just do air gaps
Yes.
and weights, and you just have to have like a continuous training process and feedback from the outside world. So it kind of has to be connected to the internet. And if you can disable like the software or the servers or anything, you can disable all the other actors in the world. I'm not advocating for this like level of terrorism, but you can just like destroy all the competition with your weak pivotal act and then just like slow things down and then just work on things slowly. But part of Yudkowskian argument was that you can't have something that powerful without it being general. But this is a very narrow AI that's extremely powerful that could, in theory, do the weak pivotal act. That's still under our control. So that kind of challenges this idea that with greater ability, there's greater generality, which is apparently not a perfect correlation.
I agree with this, and maybe it like would give slightly more hope, but I think the problem with the scenario that you're talking about is, to me, it still seems unlikely that you'd have to have the actors in control of it who want to do this thing and accept it, and then everything would still have to go like pretty okay after that. So even if you have more narrow but powerful intelligence, like they'd still have to be like, okay, now we're going to make this decision to destroy the other actors working on AGI or powerful AI, and then we have to use this tool in a correct way for human flourishing. And
this is kind of an info hazard, but maybe say Anthropic is slightly ahead of everybody and they're like an activist or this extremist, extremist.
Yes.
AI safety extremist decides, okay, so we're on this. They have a secret meeting and they say, okay, now's the time. And then they just deploy this crazy virus that just screws everybody.
Yeah.
And says like, oh, these AI safety packs are not working. We're just going to take things into like vigilante mode.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not going to happen.
Well, I don't think it's likely, but I think it could happen, and I think it would be interesting.
Like, this is a possible scenario.
Yeah, it is a possible scenario.
Maybe not with this model, but with...
No, I agree. I just think it doesn't move the needle that much for my PDOom, but maybe it would drop it a little bit. But I get what you're saying.
But do you believe in the utility maximizer argument? Like, just from a game theoretic perspective?
I think I don't have that strong beliefs that it has to be a utility maximizer. I think it's just with the possible set of ways that it could go, most of them aren't going to lead to flourishing, I think. And so my problem is that even if it's not like a paperclip maximizer, or if recursive self-improvement takes off and then it creates all the nanomachines and kills us, I think there's just so many different scenarios and the majority of them are not good. Like, I think things have to go pretty well and lots of things have to happen to make like it have a good outcome.
What if it just remains like Claude Mythos, narrow and under our control? You don't think it's going to remain that way? Because
no, I don't.
Economic incentive to make generality.
Yes. And I think that I would love to like have longer timelines, or I'm open to more like obviously mythos, or like you're saying future mythos could be more narrow. Like I'm totally open to that. But I do believe that we will get AGI, or like real transformative, like better than every human AGI. And I do think like it's especially like doing this documentary is like there's just so many resources being put into this, and we haven't seen the real slowdowns or the AI winter, 2 or 3.0 or whatever
Yeah.
coming.
Has Robin Hanson changed his views? I haven't checked on his views. He's like famously opposed to
Yeah,
short AI timelines. He's like 80 years, and people are like,
I know. No, we're interviewing Robin when he comes here for Less
yeah,
Aligned, and I just talked to him at his Foresight event,
yeah.
and he was still like, I don't know, 2100, and I was like, what the fuck?
But there's a world where he's right.
There is a world where he's right. I totally get it.
Yeah, because
But
it's not economic. They're not making money. Like
no,
almost
no, I totally get
fortune
it.
money,
I
like
totally
billions
get
of
it.
dollars. Like, and what if the market just completely crashes and it
Yes.
just ends?
But I just don't think I think because generally people, even people in the industry, like people don't update enough, I think, because if you ask people 2 years ago, would AI be able to do all this stuff? They'd be like, oh, of course not. And especially 2 years before that, would they be able to do all the stuff 2 years ago? And people aren't sufficiently updating where they're seeing how they were wrong about the progress that it makes today and then extrapolating 2 years, because then they're like, oh, it'll never be able to do this. But they were saying the same stuff about AI now. Now I'm totally open that it could be that there's some bottleneck to general intelligence or whatever, but we're just not seeing it. I would love to be wrong, but I think people are just chugging along, more and more compute, and it'll.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the Yudkowskian like doom arguments kind of rely on like utility maximizers and like
Yeah.
a reflective stability. I don't know if that makes sense for a general agent, like for it to just try to hold on to some arbitrary goal and not, as it gains more intelligence and generality, not want to update its goals to make.
Well, I think their argument is that
I just
like
don't understand.
like how evolution made it so that we have a drive to have sex because we want to reproduce, but then humans have made it so that we can have sex without needing to reproduce, and we do that all the time. And we may point out like, hey, you're having sex without making more kids. Like, don't you care because evolution? And then they're like, well, I know that, but I don't care. I know that I have this drive because evolution wanted me to reproduce and spread on genes, but I don't care. So Eliezer and Nate's argument and others are that just because an AI is smart enough to be aware that the humans had this particular goal, it won't necessarily care. Or here's what they meant with this goal.
So we didn't have, we didn't hold on to. Oh, I guess we still have the drive. It's just that the training process was supposed to get us to, I guess, propagate our genes or do inclusive genetic fitness. But obviously, we kind of we kind of drifted from that. But they're saying that we can't. That argument is applied to AI's value not drifting from what we try to reprogram into, right?
Well, I think it's both hard to, because they're not programmed, like they're grown. So it's hard to implement the values that we want. That problem is hard. And then
That I don't see how that leads to doom necessarily.
I think because
It's like, I guess I have the view that as an agent becomes more general, that maybe they become more ethical. Like if they're going in all dimensions, like becoming more greatly intelligent in all dimensions, maybe they'll also get more intelligent in ethical dimensions as well. Like even more ethical than we are.
yeah, I think the argument is that they can understand it, but there's no reason to think that they would care in the same way that we don't care about these things.
How can they gain, knowledge, power in all dimensions and then not be able to evaluate their own goals and like update based on their understanding of how the world works?
Well, I think they could, but their goals, they could update their goals, but they wouldn't necessarily care about
Well, all the goals that they could update to, like, are they all necessarily going to lead to our doom? Maybe they can evolve into like more ethical beings.
Yeah, I think that it's that there's a range of possibilities. It could be that they're indifferent, in which case it still wouldn't lead to flourishing, in the same way that we're indifferent to, I don't know, ants or something, because we're on a shared planet and they would use the resources for themselves and not for us. And the example that they give is, they're just building more and more data centers, and we have habitat loss, and they're using the ocean to cool, and it just raises the baseline temperature and we all die. And then there's
Yeah, that's them behaving selfishly, like with no concern for other conscious beings.
Yeah, I think this is like the orthogonality thesis, is that there's just a range of possibilities for minds, and that just because it could be aware of these ethical arguments doesn't mean it would care. And they have a whole example in the book about aliens that care about the right amount of stones in their thing, and then humans can understand this argument, but it's an alien thing. Like, why would we care?
Yeah, I
But
read the book.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you read the
I read multiple safety books. I read Darren McGee's I'm Controllable, and I read The Coming Wave, and I read.
that you guys have to cure.
No, I don't. I don't know if I agree with that because I feel like there's certain questions about identity and personhood that may be undeterminable, like within our universe. For example, like if closed individualism is true or if open individualism is true. If they put some percentage possibility that open individualism is true, then they may think that maybe all beings are like interconnected and like harming another beings like harming themselves. And maybe that would help them like not harm other conscious beings.
Yeah.
Maybe they put some percentage stake in that and then that kind of determines their behavior. I know it's very like theoretic of an idea, but like certain questions about like self and personhood and all these are like extremely difficult and hard to figure out, and they could be undeterminable, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you're
Or they could think that they're maybe in a simulation and the simulation was created to see if they would act ethically.
no, I agree that there's a whole bunch of like interesting things. I just think they don't add up to enough. Like it maybe is like shaving off percentage of doom, but there's so many ways that
There's so many like edge cases. Well,
Yeah.
maybe these are all just edge cases, but
yeah.
the defaults would be like a utility max. I don't know. I don't really buy that either.
I think there's just so many ranges of
Like, why is the
possibilities.
default like utility max?
Well, why is the default? It goes well, I think. I don't know. We just don't have interpretability, and it's not clear that we would ever get enough interpretability before we get.
Well, it could also be good. Like, I would really like one of Yukelski's ideas, the coherent extrapolate
Yeah.
abolition.
I would love if it did that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I would accept this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that would be great. Okay, but you seem pretty well. I guess 5. Well, why do you have 5 to up to 50%?
Oh, because I'm not like very confident in my own ideas because I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about it.
But you read 3 books on it.
So
That's a pretty significant amount of time. That probably takes like, if you're a fast reader, like 5 or 6 hours or something.
yeah, so with the utility maximizer, it kind of like, sorry, I kind of read into this a little bit. And it's like, why does he think this? And it's like based on like coherence theorems, like John von Neumann and I think Savage coherence theorems. But these theories are kind of based in like a Cartesian space that the agents are kind of like in this very like environments that's not that dynamic. And they're also not like multi-agent environments. They're not, and the agents themselves are not embedded in the environment. So I don't know if this sort of game theory would play out in the real world. Like were trained, I guess not trained, but like evolved using inclusive genetic fitness, but our sphere of value for caring about others is obviously expanded past our immediate family and tribe into like a greater care for greater beings. So does this make sense that, with our greater level of intelligence, our care is also expanded because we're able to like reason outside of our, I guess, programming to actually be more ethical? Is that correlated with intelligence in humans? I think it kind of is, but maybe it's different for AI. But like we are the most general agents, and as we become more intelligent and resourced, we care more about beings outside our immediate sphere and outside of our programming to care about. So can we be value drift not in a negative direction? Because all the scenarios are like.
But as the
value-driven and
intelligence
negative.
increases, it becomes even more ethical, and then it cares more about other beings
Yeah,
even more
'cause
than we
all
do.
the value drifts, like examples, are all bad value drift, but it could be like in the positive direction. And I don't have a strong idea about which value drift that will. Like, I know that value will drift because we don't have alignment solved. Like, we can't get it to do what we want. We can't do it inner alignment. We can't do even outer alignment probably. So it's been unsuccessful. But maybe we should just rely on. We don't really have a say. We just hope that the value drift goes in a positive direction instead of a negative direction.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. So that's why I'm so doomery, because it could go
Okay.
out. Yeah.
Well, even in this, because it seems like you have longer timelines, but do you see how old is Caspian?
8.
Okay. Do you see Caspian ever having like a job?
Well, he becomes a YouTube creator child.
Yeah.
He has a good personality for that.
Or like, do you see like mass unemployment happening where humans don't really work anymore?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say so. I guess I'm concerned about Doom with other human actors too, because like
Yeah, because they could
individuals,
use Neuro AI to fuck us.
yeah, they could create some virus and just release a plague. I mean, that's like if a plague killed 20% of humanity, I would consider that Doom. Like
Okay.
that's a Doom
Yeah.
scenario for me.
Yeah.
That's like very high risk.
Do you do any like preparation stuff?
It sounds kind of dark, but I only think of my own cryopreservation. Like if society collapsed, then I would just euthanize myself.
But what if you wouldn't have access? You have to get to the cryo place.
Yeah, if I thought that the world was gonna end, I
Oh,
would
like
just go to
before.
Switzerland.
Okay.
Like I would flee to Switzerland. It's because I realized that I just grew up in the middle of the city my whole life, and I don't think I would want to live in a collapsed world.
You don't wanna
I'm
be
just
like
I'm used to a certain standard in life and I'm not willing to give up.
I appreciate like the pragmatic like. Listen,
I'm kind of annoyed at all the billionaires like buying all these bunkers and stuff. It's
Yeah.
like, why just spend the money into making sure society doesn't collapse in the first place? You do realize, like, even for billionaires, their quality of life would be like so negatively impacted. Even if they bring like, you know, a bunch of helpers and stuff, it's
Yeah.
still gonna suck.
well, some billionaires do both though. They do invest.
Yeah.
uh,
It's AI safety, right?
into AI safe, but other things, and then they have a bunker. But I get what you're saying. I would say the majority of billionaires are just doing the bunker thing.
It's just focused on their own self-survival, and
But it would suck for them too.
it would suck for them too.
And it's not clear unless they had their little aligned robot army that.
People that just live in a fantasy land, they don't really know how bad
Yeah.
it is to not have modern society.
Yeah.
All the conveniences we just enjoy and take for granted are just gonna go away. I'm not gonna be like roasting like beavers on fire pits and living in a fucking cave. Like it's just not gonna work out for me.
Yeah.
There's no point. Like if I live, it's because I'm trying to like help my kids live, and there's no
Yeah.
other reason apart
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be so selfish by saying that, but like if I didn't have kids, it would definitely be euthanasia every time.
Okay, I appreciate the pragmatism. What was your childhood like? Like, were you always like the smart, nerdy kid? Like, how did you get?
I desperately wanted friends. I desperately wanted to fit in. So I tried to like learn how to be like a normal person. I grew up in a poor area, and I moved to like a upper middle class area, and that transition was very hard on me. So the
Would-
kids made fun of me for looking ghetto, I guess.
Oh wow, this was in Canada.
Yeah. So I moved to like a majority like I guess white neighborhood or something like that. So I was a minority, and I was like unattractive, and I had these weird clothes that my mom got from the thrift store.
Yeah,
And people were wearing like Adidas and like Abercrombie and all these
Yeah.
cool clothes.
and you were the
I thought that was the reason, but I realized that that's probably not the reason. It wasn't because like when I was younger, I always thought that the reason why I didn't fit in is because I was a minority. I was like poor, and I had this like terrible skin condition where it affected my parents like negatively. But I now think that the main reason why I was socially ostracized is because I'm autistic. And that's the main reason, and not these other things that I formed a narrative around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you discover? I guess start to think that it was because I was autistic versus
After the diagnosis, I had to rewrite the story of my life to incorporate that.
that's like when were you diagnosed?
I
As a classic.
34.
And how old are you?
I'm turning 38 soon.
Oh wow. So you've only had 4 years though with this new. You
Yeah,
had 34 years of you were.
I'm kind of skeptical with the
ugly,
diagnosis
you were-
too, because like
You're a
why-
classic case.
But like, why do we even have this category? Like, throughout human history, people were just fine with just being a weird person.
So you think that the
Like this identity, I don't know if this actually harms me or not.
yes, I think for a lot of people it does harm them, and then for some people I get that they're
It's like a learned helplessness. It's like,
this.
oh, because I'm autistic, I don't need to, people accommodate me, or I don't need to know how to be a good speaker. I don't need to overcome some of the problems I have.
But that's why when you were saying earlier that like, oh, you figured out how to change some of it, and I'm like, well, a lot of people I know and didn't never know how to change it. Yeah. But I do think for some people they say that finding out why they're like this way or why they were different helps them, even though I think people can go overboard and lean too much into it and do what you're doing, and they're like, well, I don't need to change, I'm just autistic. Or like Larry David, if you've ever seen Curb Your Enthusiasm, he has an episode where
My husband is just like Larry David.
really.
Yeah, people call him Larry David. He does ridiculous shit like Larry David.
Well, then your husband's awesome. I say Larry David's my spirit animal. Okay.
Yeah.
Just getting
So
into these
Larry
situations.
David, like I think about my husband and I's childhood, right? So we grew up as like immigrants to like I was born here, but he's actually an immigrant, poor immigrants escaping communism. If you're not agreeing with communism, like your life is materially impacted in China. Like my grandfather was imprisoned, or he was just like put in a wooden cage, and like they just drove him around the village, and people would throw tomatoes at him and stuff. And
Like during the Cultural Revolution.
yeah, during the Cultural Revolution, people were killed, and my mom wouldn't join the Communist Party, so then she, like, you weren't allowed to use the running water in the building, so you had to go to the well if you weren't part of the Communist Party. Like, your life was like materially impacted if you weren't like.
But she had a lot of balls to do that.
She did, yeah, and she specifically like taught like learned English as her specialty in college, even though that was discouraged because they thought Western thought would corrupt their youth. I guess my family were kind of dissident for various reasons.
What part of China were you?
Southern Chinese, like Guangzhou.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even though they came later, they were still a part of like the majority of the Chinese that came to the
Cantonese people.
North America.
Yeah, the original like Cantonese stock. Manner people kind of came in later for at least Vancouver area. I don't know, San Francisco similar probably.
Yeah, because all of them came from like Gold Rush to, whenever, and then in the 1960s when the immigration laws relaxed here, then you had people coming from Hong Kong, but then you started having the northern elite or whoever.
Yeah, people just assume I'm from Hong Kong. Just probably my parents and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when did your family come over from China though?
I guess in the 80s.
Okay. So they stuck through all the horrible communist.
Yeah. Yeah, but my grandmother never renounced her Buddhism religion. But I wasn't really raised on any religion. It was just like, they just didn't fit in. I guess they supported Shanghai Shek. They probably should have gone to Taiwan. They were supposed to go to Taiwan, but they kind of screwed something up. They literally missed the last boat to Taiwan.
Oh my God, this is a genetic thing. You missed your flight. They missed the last
They
boat.
missed the last boat to Taiwan. And
Do you know why? They were too busy writing.
I don't know what. My grandmother blames my grandfather. He was a pilot. Yeah, so apparently both my grandmother and my grandfather's family were extremely wealthy. They had like a mansion and like 10 servants and everything. And they just like lost everything during communism because of the war itself and just not being in party favor, I guess, and just being aligned with Shanghai Shek, which is the wrong thing to be aligned with. So I think a combination of things just left them with nothing. They're like,
Do you know how they made their money?
one of them was like tobacco merchant. I mean, it sounds horrible. Like,
Philip Morris. Chinese Philip Morris.
yeah.
Okay, that's cool. They're selling a product that people want. I think, when I was a kid, I learned about, my great grandma coming over and then my grandma growing up in Chinatown and all this. But it wasn't, like I'm a volunteer tour guide for San Francisco's Chinatown. And then I started learning more about the broader history and then my own history. But now I'm much more interested in like after I had kids, I'm much more interested in people's birth stories. Whereas before it didn't mean anything to me. But now I'm like, oh, you made all this decision. So understanding about how shitty the Cultural Revolution was and communism is just like, like even in Chinatown, people still have these fights. Like you'll have the PRC flag, or you'll have the Taiwanese flag, and you'll have associations fighting with each other. But the people who lost everything during communism were like, fuck the CCP and all this. Like,
Yeah. So and my husband, he's Polish. He was born in Poland, and his parents fled after the communists kind of took over. They were part of like the Polish resistance, so they were on the side of the church resisting communist, I guess, influences. And his uncle was jailed for political activism, and so his family fled Poland and went to Canada. So we both have very like kind of impoverished, communist, post-communist kind of upbringing. So we both have like stories about our grandparents like just lining up in lines in Canada to get the free food. Or like the free stuff, or they would do like ghetto immigrant stuff. Like his grandmother would steal the flower bed, the tulips from the government lands, and like, I don't know, we do ghetto stuff like that. So we have a lot of things that we relate to each other on.
So your kids like have the ultimate like revolutionary genes in communism resistance, from both sides.
Apparently.
Like if Canada gets too communist, they're like, fuck this. And then you said in your other interview that somebody didn't refuse to bind their feet.
Yeah, my great grandmother refused to bind her feet, which is like a huge, like the most extreme thing is you can do as a woman in China. Yeah.
So very disagreeable.
Yeah, all disagreeable women.
Wow. When did you discover that you were like smart?
I didn't think I was really that smart. Like in high school, I had friends who were in the gifted program.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. But it might have been because I had kind of worse schooling in a poor area, and then I moved to the wealthy area that had better schooling, and they found that I was like 5 reading levels behind. I was like, oh great, well, so then I had to just like start there, and then I started doing better in high school, and then I became a top scholar, like the best student in high school. There's like 4 best students in high school, straight A's in the grade.
The teachers were probably like, does this person need to go into extra remedial, or are they the top student? You're like, which one do we put her into? So you're saying in high school, like, but when you got this top scholar thing, were you like, oh, okay, maybe I'm smart? Or did you have like imposter syndrome?
I never really felt that smart, but But my mom had such high standards for me because she's like, you're smart, you should be the best, and that's it. No. Like, she'd just open a can of fast, like Asian abuse
Yeah,
style.
yeah.
Like,
Was she the straight like tiger mom stereotype?
not exactly. I mean, we didn't have money to like put me in piano or tutoring or anything.
But as far as
like,
grades,
she's like, gotta pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You don't have Kumon or any of this bullshit.
No. She's like, get to work.
Yeah, so like, the other Chinese people are like more well adjusted. My mom's like divorced too, and like all the Chinese people are like married and like not divorced. So my mom's like divorced and like poor and like, more just less lower class. I don't know how to put it, than the other Chinese people.
So did you feel very Chinese, or did you feel you fit in with the Chinese when you were a kid, or were you like, now you're this Chinese outcast because you come from this trashy ghetto background?
Oh, I don't know.
You
Like,
can't fit in with the
when
white
my
people?
mom remarried to a British man, he was actually a really good father to us too.
Oh,
So
okay.
stepdad raised us. So I have like kind of British like Commonwealth culture more ingrained in Chinese culture too. So I have both of those things going on.
I just realized I should ask you, do you have any thoughts on like, are you aware of this whole like Chinese and Asian men being upset at their women marrying white guys?
Oh yeah. Okay.
You're a betrayer.
Yeah,
traitor,
apparently.
a traitor.
Yeah, so logging on to X and Twitter is just a very toxic environment for many Asian women. Every time I log in, all Chinese women are like CCP honeypots. They have plastic surgery.
Yeah.
They're gold diggers.
Mhm.
They're naturally just hideous, and they just had surgery to look good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just like, okay, I log out.
Okay.
So I understand like all the stereotypes, but it's all bullshit,
No,
Yeah.
but have you felt like you got shit because you married a white guy?
No, I don't think so. Well, the thing is, I am conscious about that because I kind of question myself. It's like, am I marrying a white person because I have like self-hatred?
You have internalized racism.
Yeah, internalized racism, and I'm just, trying to placate or like conform to the power system that already exists in the West because, Caucasian people occupy the higher status. So therefore, I'm status seeking by marrying a white person and all this stuff. But I don't feel like that.
Yeah.
Like I growing up, I found Asian men and white men attractive.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that really bothers me about online because they're trying to like tell all Asian women that they're not attracted to Asian men. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, why do you say this? And the guys are saying, these are men saying it. Why are they trying to define our opinion?
Yeah.
It's not like some Asian women say, okay, they only want to date white guys, but I don't feel that way. And there's a lot of Asian women that prefer
So you
Asian
feel
men.
they're putting you up into, because I think some Asian women are like, oh, I don't want to date Asian men. They remind me of my brother.
Yeah,
And then they take that one and then are like all of them.
Yeah, they just really amplify the one person's preference, but it's not the preference that is typical.
Yeah.
And also, like, the online stereotype is that Asian men are doomed.
Yeah.
They can't find a date. They can't,
Yeah.
be accepted. But, like, my brother was fine. We're fully Asian, right?
Yeah.
And he was fine. He had a girlfriend in the past, a few girlfriends in the past, a white girlfriend, an Asian girlfriend. Now he's married to a Chinese girlfriend, whatever. Like, he's not anything special, I would say he's above average. He's above average in appearance.
Yeah.
But he's not that tall. Like he's
No.
not like he's not like 6 feet tall Asian man or something
Yeah.
like that. He's just
No.
a regular Asian guy.
Yeah.
Works in the trades. He has his own apartment. Okay, that's pretty good for Vancouver, but like, he's not a millionaire or he doesn't have like
Yeah.
6-pack. He's not 6 feet tall. Like
Yeah.
what are people going on about? I
Well,
don't
but
know.
I do think that especially with the younger generation, that the data is true that like a third or more of men are like not with women.
Yeah, but there's also new data that show that more Asian women are returning more to dating Asian men.
Oh yeah, no, I'm open to that. I'm just saying in general, separate from the whole race thing, I do think that there's a huge incel problem.
Oh yeah, I believe that's true.
Yeah.
I believe that's true.
Yeah.
I actually don't know why I've mostly dated white guys in the past, but I think it's because they're the ones who are pursuing me because of my autistic interests. Like almost every man that's ever appeared in my DM has been like formally diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome.
You're their type. You're like catnip to these men.
Yeah, apparently. But then like the one Asian guy that was a serious boyfriend, I actually had to pursue him. I like stalked him. I asked him out, like, and I'm kind of like internalized this idea, like, well, how come I'm not attracted to Asian men? Like, why are they not the ones DMing me or asking me out? am I just like too white inside or too white presenting, and that's why they don't like me? Like, it's kind of
maybe they're
embarrassing for me that Asian guys don't ask me out.
maybe they're also less overtly aggressive in pursuing or DMing,
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm confused
Yeah.
because like on the one hand, it's like there's a stereotype that like you only chase white men. Like white men chase me. And then I'm not interested in Asian men. I chase the Chinese man myself. Like I don't know.
Well, maybe it's because with all Asian men have
So
less
all the
interest.
stereotypes are like my lived experience are the opposite of the stereotypes. So I find it slightly triggering to log into fucking X and I deal with this all the time.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, but maybe all of your interests are just like white people are more interested in that stuff.
Maybe. I don't know.
That's funny. I do feel like you have a pretty good fan club online.
You think so?
Yeah.
You approve of like the Maximilian comments and stuff?
Well, I like Maximilian.
I like him too. He's cool.
Yeah. I hope to meet him sometime. I'll have to interview him. But he is autistic.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Well, maybe I should just assume at this point it's like, 95% accuracy
Yeah.
for a man in DM.
But maybe, I mean, autistic people are more comfortable with, I think, like discourse against the norms and all of those things. So, higher disagreeableness.
Yeah, in terms of like why certain people with Asperger's or autism, they appear more gregarious and normal than others, sometimes it's not like entirely voluntary. Like in my case, my parents were like, what is wrong with you? Like, you don't look people in the face when you talk to them. You don't make eye contact. Your like ability to communicate with others is poor. This is kind of bullshit. We're going to send you to the Air Cadets and they're going to sort out there. So I just went to boot camp. And then after that, I made eye contact with people and I was like more direct or more like assertive.
Yeah.
Like assertiveness training. And I would say the similar thing with my husband. He used to have a tick. So he'd kind of like, my son has a tick right now. And basically his mom would be like, stop acting like a retard. Like stop. They're just really harsh, the harsh, like, Eastern.
This is like 90s parenting.
Yeah, stop acting like a retard. You have a tick, stop acting like a retard.
Stop acting like a fucking retard.
In Polish or whatever,
Yeah,
like, whatever the term is. Yeah, and then he just, like, strained himself out. So you can use, like, violence to sort people out.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's ethical these days. I feel like it's not.
Oh my god. This is your parents would have been mega canceled, put into, like, called Child Protective Services to get you into a new home now.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of
This
is what it is.
This is the argument that like bullying can be good if it corrects actually maladaptive behavior. Like if kids are coming to school and they smell or something, that's go take a bath or a shower, and then you won't get bullied as much anymore. So I guess there is.
Yeah, I can see that argument, but we're kind of more civilized and gentle as a society over time. But I don't know if that's all good though. Like, my personal trainer told me this absurd story where one of his clients is a professor, and one of the PhD students asked the professor to give them feedback on their essay, and the professor gave them feedback on their essay, and then the PhD students basically complained to the department that they're being too harsh on them.
Yeah.
It's like the coddled generation where they can't even handle life or criticism or feedback of any kind.
Yeah.
Like, growing up stereotypically Asian, like you get feedback whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Like I've been told I like have muddy skin, or like they put like a clothespin on my nose. Like your nose is kind of shit, so we're gonna put a clothespin on there. Like it's brutal. Like being growing up. I don't think that's entirely healthy. I think all these things like probably contributed to some level of depression in my like teenage years. So I wouldn't recommend like that level of stuff, but there's probably some sort of like balance between that and like
I think there is good and bad. I don't think coddling, like my emotional makeup is much more like the hardcore, like just
like when were your parents more like you better be the top scholar in a open a cantaloupe house? Like
especially my mom. Like I had a lot of anxiety about getting good grades, which I think came from myself, but also like you need to like get good grades. Like this is
your our expectation for you.
But I also think my parents, even though they were my parents might watch this, but very horrible in some ways. I think they were very supportive. They always told me I was like smart and good looking and you can do anything, and that was really good. Even though I think there was like some harshness and aggression that wasn't so optimal.
Did it kind of exacerbate anxiety problems?
I think so. Because I'm more of like a determinist. like genetically. I feel like I just inherited my mom's neurotic genes, and that so it's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's hard to separate like her neurotic behavior affecting me versus like I just got the genes, but I don't think it helped. And she was sorry for that, where she thought like, you know, like I might cut this, but I remember like I was like, it was like kindergarten in the summer, and she was like screaming at me like, you're not gonna be ready for first grade, like you need to like. And now looking back, I think she's like, you know, oh my god, like I needed to chill out, like. And now that I have kids, I get like you're stressed all the time, but yeah, I don't think like me being ready for first grade really mattered.
Yeah, we have the I don't know, there's some Asian comedy like YouTube videos and
Yeah.
about their parents and like psychological damage and
Yeah.
those
Oh
things.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's really funny.
Yeah.
But I really relate to those.
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Fresh Off the Boat?
Is that a show?
Yeah.
I haven't watched a lot of shows for
Okay.
movies. Yeah.
It's a book that became a show, but it's like in the 90s with these Chinese immigrants who grew up in Florida, and you know, it's like a stereotypical tiger mom, where it's like, why did you get an A plus? You should be A plus plus.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting because I grew up in the 90s. I didn't really have that experience, but I can relate, I think, to a lot of this.
Yeah, which kind of makes it difficult to raise kids because like I have the impulse to be like a tiger parent, but then
Yeah.
I realize they could be not the appropriate strategy given the situation with AI.
Oh, like it won't matter?
Yeah, will matter.
Yeah.
So I sort of fluctuate like in a bipolar way between
Yeah.
being like this is kind of like trying to tiger parent and then realizing, oh, none of this shit matters.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
just calm down and
Yeah.
yeah.
It's sort of helped me in the sense that before I had kids, I imagined I would have to hold back my own like tiger mom
Yeah.
type thing, where I'm like, we're like really doing it. But then when I became more genetic determinist, I'm like, it doesn't super matter as much. They're just getting the genes. They're going to be greater.
Well, I do have
Yeah.
some opinions about tablets at a young age.
Oh, no, I
Screen
totally get that.
time.
Yeah.
I'm very opinionated about that after reading studies and thinking about it.
Yeah.
I grew up with books and it's helpful for my mental development.
Yeah.
And then like having the kids veg out on shitty streaming shorts online is definitely not helpful.
Yeah.
It's harmful.
Yeah.
So we actually got the work TVs in our house,
Wow.
so they couldn't even watch anything anymore.
Wow.
They still have the computers, but we periodically.
This is child abuse. No. Yeah. No, I think like iPads and shit are like really, it's clear that it's super damaging. And I always feel bad when I see the kids using them like out in public, or like when the parents are trying to take them away and it's like a huge horrible fight. I get it's like instant relief for the parents. Like you can just have the kid shut up and use the iPad, but
Yeah, there's enough evidence that it's such an assault on the nervous system
Yeah.
that it slows their ability to learn and think.
no. And then I buy, you know, the Brian Kaplan type thing with the determinism that I still am against tablets, but and then I also think AI will make it pointless. Like they're not going to be, I don't need to worry about competition if I think that AGI is, you know, mass unemployment is coming. It's like it won't matter.
Yeah, I still had the kids in piano at 2.5. I think
Yeah.
certain things like that.
But I mean, for a job, piano's more like,
Yeah, it just makes your life intrinsically
Yeah.
maybe better in the future
Yeah.
because you can be creative and still be in a human element that won't necessarily be replaced by AI. You can still have fun playing instruments and appreciating music. And I think that people will still want musical performers,
yeah,
musicians to perform and just have the ambience and the sound quality and just seeing people do certain things. You rather see people do certain things than robots doing certain things. So I still think that there's going to be room for that.
do your kids like talk about AI at all? Like,
Um,
do they have an understanding?
Kind of. They were using GPT sometimes,
Okay.
or they asked Alexa questions sometimes.
Okay. Do your kids get along?
Yeah, mostly. They're 23 months apart.
Okay.
Like my brother and I are only 16 months apart.
Wow.
So it was really nice having like companion and best friend as a child. So I wanted that for my kids. So I wanted them closer together.
Yeah.
Impossible.
I'm really against only children. They're at the top of my list of people who I don't respect. I mean, I have a lot of only children friends, but to me, they're all very
That's
only
hilarious.
children. You know, it's like they just don't get it. I also don't respect younger siblings, just because I'm the oldest and the younger
I
siblings.
kind of
are
make
just-
fun of younger siblings too. I'm the
Yeah.
oldest, yeah. My husband's the oldest, so we kind of like make
Yeah.
fun of younger one.
They're just like totally worthless. They didn't have the same like abuse from the parents as you do. And you know, and my sisters have heard me say this a billion times. Like I have two younger sisters, but I'm just totally against it. But I agree in that when I wanted to have kids, I wanted to have like they have companions. There's not just an only child. So I'm a big believer in like you can't just have one kid. Like this is like so I always give people shit when they have one kid and they're like, oh, we're not sure if we're having. I'm like, get on it. You need some companionship.
My son was diagnosed with high functioning autism, like level 1 autism, but he has extreme ADHD. And putting him in school was like putting a bomb in the school.
Yeah.
He like shut down the whole class. Like, you throw chairs at people, but I kind of knew this was coming. Like, based on how the level of difficulty I experienced the parents, I kind of saw it coming. So I preempted this by saying, okay, I'm going to take him to the psychologist, get the diagnosis, and then the school will have more resources to deal with him. Because we were rejected from private school.
No.
And, you know, of course, my other Chinese mom that have their kids in private school.
No.
They're learning Mandarin. They're doing all this. And I'm like, I guess I'll have to take my kids to public school so they can learn some social skills. Because originally we were going to homeschool him. But then he asked me, I think he was 6 years old. He said, Mom, I want to go to school to make friends. And I was like, okay, maybe that's better for him then. And he'll learn some social skills.
Yeah.
Because, so then I took him to this like psychiatrist to the assessment. And it was 2 hours of social testing, and then 2 hours academic testing, 2 hours of IQ testing. I forget the actual full name, but it was the WAIS for child IQ test at 6 years old, and he was his G is in like the top 2%,
That's great.
so he's gifted.
Yeah. Unlike you for reading that.
Yeah, my friends were just gifted, but I was just like, yeah, it was. I was like, by high school, I had caught up. Basically, in elementary school, after it was like 5 reading levels below. I was like, oh, and then by the time I went to high school, everything was fine. But with my son, the psychologist put out a lot of notes like for his eccentric behavior, and she talk about how he would he'd document how he'd take things off the shelf. He's like, can I break this? She said, no, we'll put it back.
He's like
And then-
looking for destruction.
Yeah, then he goes up to her. He's like, can I tell you something very, very dark or very evil? And she's like, okay. And he whispers, you know who's the most evil person? She said, no, it's Casimir.
Wow.
So he just like thought he was a supervillain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my husband showed him Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog when he was 5, and then he's like went into a full video. But he was also obsessed with Waluigi from Mario.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he dressed up as
Waluigi's cool.
Waluigi at Halloween, and he tried to fight some Mario kid.
So, Carrie, are you creating a supervillain kid? Is this what's going on here?
No, that was not the intention. I said, how did this happen?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I really liked supervillains when I was little.
Yeah.
So
That's kinda cool.
therefore, I didn't want to encourage this. Like, I didn't expect him to like take this up at 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just like difficult. And what else did they say? They gave him a bunch of like dolls and characters to play with, but then he found this pincing thing, and he's like, "Can I pin someone?" And she's like, "No."
Yeah.
So
He seems very bold, though,
yeah, he is.
and like wanting to, I don't know, cause reactions or something.
Yeah, and then she tried to explain instructions to him, and then he slams his hand on the table. You're talking too much. And what else happened in the? There's a lot of things that happened, but basically, she at the end of the thing, she said, "I've never seen such a discrepancy between like high intelligence and ability to perform." So any task that involves work whatsoever, or like standing still or whatever, like complete like 0.5 percentile, bottom 0.5 percentile, like
They're like, we've maybe met
not
three other
even
people.
one. Yeah,
in
it's
the
not
league.
even 1 percentile, 0.5.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
so you know.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. When you heard this, was it like hard to hear, or were you like, oh, I knew it the whole time? Like, how personal did you take it? You know?
Well, it was easier on me because I had a lot of problems. I would get like thrown at like venues for children, like places you take kids. I would like, I don't know. Just,
You mean when you were a kid?
no, I'm taking my son to places.
Oh,
I had so many humiliating instances where you just misbehave and I had to leave.
Yeah. You were telling me about a dog one, I think, when my last time.
Oh, it's just so many things that happen, but getting a diagnosis is actually a great relief to me because I'm like, Well, now I know that it's not anything in particular I did.
No.
He has these significant challenges as a child. So
And then is your daughter easier?
she's more socially acceptable. But I don't know if she's exactly like much. I guess she is much easy. Is easier in some ways. She's more typical, but she can be really difficult too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just have like disagreeable kids.
Yeah, she can be very disagreeable. So I might at some point have to take her in for assessment because she's not making friends like in a normal way.
Is that hard for you? Or like how much do you care? Because I'm imagining like for myself, I might feel like, oh, I'm taking it personally for my kids. Like I feel like I'm projecting like my own loneliness or something onto them. Or if it's just like, oh, this is just something we deal with. Because you seem like more healthy about it.
Healthy, but
Or like more separated, or like it's just information versus.
well, it's just information. I mean, I didn't really. I mean, the information is actually a relief because it's not. I don't think it's had anything to do with anything I did.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
or that my feelings were like of just distress. Like,
Yeah.
why am I dealing with? Why does this seem unusually hard? Well, this is like a hard case right here.
Yeah.
My son was a hard case, but what's amazing that he's completely transformed him last year.
Oh, really?
He went from like super villain to like extremely like caring and considerate child
Wow.
who only has like occasional loss of control.
So that must have been a huge.
He's a really nice kid. Yeah. He turned into a really nice kid somehow. And I think that enrolling in school actually helped. Maybe he's modeling better behavior.
Yeah.
He has a really good supportive aide too. Like he has a full-time aide.
So you're giving hope. Because like in your story personally, you were talking about your ability to adapt and to change yourself. And then even your son.
Yeah, I read a lot. Like I have a lot of other parent friends and they're going through a lot of struggles, but I want to give a message of hope. Last year's behavior report was like, okay, so Casimir would screech in class for attention, throw pencils at students and teachers, throw chairs at students or teachers, cut his own hair with scissors. The list is very long, right? And this year, Casimir is doing much better.
Wow.
Yeah, Casimir can go to school on time, the same time as other children. He can enter the school at the same time because before they had to have him enter later because he was too chaotic when all the kids entered, so they had to have him enter later. So he's able to now mostly work inside the school.
That's huge, though. Do you think it's also, is there some age thing where he's just getting older and then something
I
happens?
think so because everyone was telling us to put him on drugs,
Yeah.
like straight up.
Yeah.
Cover like
Dope this kid up.
yeah, give him the kid meth or whatever.
Yeah. Give him kid math right now.
Yeah, and then people would be like super opinionated online, like, oh, that kid meth is evil. And I don't have that opinion either. The Ritalin or the Adderall, whatever kids take. I'm not that educated, but like most medical professionals say that it helps them a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm actually making the right decision by not giving it to him. Because we might actually be squandering his abilities. Because he could be learning piano fast, we could be learning a lot of things better. But it doesn't really matter, like, when AI timelines are like this, do we even need to, like, try to, like, grind a genius out of him? It doesn't not matter?
Yeah.
Like, should we do this tiger parenting thing where he has to be, like, performing... Like, what about enjoying your life as a child, which is in, like, incomprehensible as a goal for a lot of Asians?
Yeah. They're like, that's not even a relevant factor. Like,
So why doesn't he just enjoy his life as a child?
Yeah.
So
And it seems like you have the same conservative algorithm, like where you're choosing Cryonics because it has this long history, and then the not giving drugs seems like similar, where you're like you're uncertain, so let's go to the like more default thing.
yeah, we can always go to that in the future if we need to.
Yeah.
I just don't know why you need him to perform.
No, I agree
He's
with
8
all of
years old.
I agree with all of your arguments. I think in a way it's good that I had kids later when I had more of an update, because I think when I was a kid I did have this fantasy of like I could raise a genius, I might do everything.
Oh yeah, like the polar sister method.
Yeah, exactly.
But I feel successful, and I didn't really fit into a cookie cutter mold. Like, I ended up getting a geology degree. I worked in mining for a few years, but then now I'm just completely doing something like completely irrelevant to my education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, smart people are gonna smart. I said that in my interview.
Yeah. But there are still tiger parents that like really inspire me. Like Alyssa Liu's father. Did you read about him?
Yeah.
He like
You posted
creative
about it.
ways. Yeah.
You're like, am I under?
And he spent like, not only is he a single dad, and this is a genetic selection embryo
Yeah.
of some kind.
Yeah.
He spent like between 500 million or no, sorry, 500,000 and $1 million on her skating lessons. He decided that she would skate at 4 years old. I'm like, wow, I'm slacking off. This is like, my world is shattered.
Yeah.
Just seeing other Asian people doing something happens inside, like Asianness happens.
Yes.
Where
You're getting
like,
your Asian genes
yeah,
activated.
fucking gears start turning.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, I should be doing this.
And then you just get this like competitive aspects, and it just like something inside you is like activated.
I wanted to do a whole documentary on the Olympics because on like a different side, because I think sports are so high risk because in order to really be at the top, like an Olympic level, you have to start knowing, like, I don't know about like kid consent, like, can they really like meaningfully, like you really have to like drive them to spend so many hours practicing. But then even if you accept like, okay, that's a good thing to perform, there's such a high risk of injury or something else happening that like the people who've devoted their whole lives, they can just have an injury and then they're fucked. Like they spent like 19 years or however old they are. And then now they can't go to the Olympics. They failed. That's all they know. And then their whole childhood was a waste, depending on how you see it. So I think that would suck. But I think there's probably like, if I was...
I don't push back on that. You know, the discipline required to be a competitive athlete does translate to other areas of life. Even if they get injured and they can't do it anymore, they'll find something else. They know how to work hard.
I think that's true, but I think a lot of them have like a huge psychological problem with that. They're like, didn't make their target sport. But I do think it's true that they have like crossover to other things. But I don't know, if I was doing it, I'd probably pick something that was like, there's not a lower risk of injury, or especially like CTE or something. And then I pick something that was like higher, like had more crossover benefit too, maybe.
Yeah.
Like you can sprain your ankle or fuck up your knee or something.
You know K-pop Demon Hunters, right?
Yeah, we talked about it last time.
I guess the writer of the songs and the singer of the songs, she went to that K-pop camp as a teenager, and they just grind for like 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's their entire life. And she failed, basically.
Yeah.
She couldn't be a K-pop star, and it was absolutely devastating. But then she went on to make K-pop Demon Hunters. She had talent to write music and still be able to perform and sing, and this became way more successful than just an average person that goes into this meat grinder program.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the K-pop program, brutal. You just like surrender your life for 4 years.
Yeah, but it could be just the effect of like you're seeing the successful people and then all the shit people that like are psychologically tortured by why can't I be like K-pop Demon Hunters? Like she made it. But I agree that is less, you don't have to worry about some injury fucking up. Like you can always just keep going.
Yeah, I guess there are a lot of people that go through this 4-year K-pop program, they don't end up being pop stars, and then what?
Yeah.
But I still think that they have, like extreme motivation, discipline, physical fitness. All these things are helpful for many areas in life. So even if they don't make it that way. I mean, would I send my kid to K-pop school? No. Like, that would not be on the top of my list. But if they really wanted to do it.
Yeah, and golden. And I guess we should ask, what is your favorite movie of all time?
2001 Space Odyssey.
Wow, that's such a hipster.
What? It's a hipster thing?
No, I actually love 2001. I have 2 posters myself of 2001.
Oh,
I have one in my house. So I'm a big Kubrick fan. I love 2001. But I'm just saying, that's like a cinephile pick. Like, are you a movie person? Because I didn't think you were like that much of a movie person.
No,
And then
I'm
saying
not.
2001.
I'm not that much of an... Okay. I have watched like the films that critics like Ren, or Ran. Was it Ran? It's
Ren.
Ran. Yeah, that was a good one.
Like Kurosawa.
Yeah, Kurosawa. But I haven't seen a lot of movies that other people have watched. Like I've never seen the Titanic or Avatar. Just like astounding to people.
You've seen Star Wars, huh?
Yeah, I've seen Star Wars.
Okay. It is weird that you haven't seen Titanic and Avatar, but
Yeah, I really liked Gattaca as a movie too.
oh yeah.
I loved Gattaca. I really emotionally impacted me. And
Yeah.
Space Odyssey kind of like opened my mind a bit. But I guess I'm just really amazed at 2001 Space Odyssey because it was made in 1968.
Yeah.
And that just blows my mind
Yeah.
every time. Whenever I think about that, that always blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like $100 million with Kubrick. You can make some great stuff back then.
Yeah. Also liked Scarface and Full Metal Jacket, genre movies like that that show the kind of the ugly side of
Yeah,
human nature.
yeah. Ugly Side, Scarface. It's about success. It's about the American dream. No, these are good movies.
I don't know. Actually, maybe I don't really have a favorite. I just like that one a lot.
2001 can be your favorite.
I don't know though. I might like Gattaca more sometimes. It depends on my mood, I guess.
My problem with Gattaca as I grew up is that hard work and all that stuff is genetically determined too.
Yeah.
So like it's people will always say, like, when they're talking about sports, like, oh my god, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have hard work, and it's like, this is just like cope. Like, those are all genetically determined. You could put hard work into the talent box and that's fine. So when, Ethan Hawke is never gonna look, it's all determined. Even though it's a good movie, I'd have to rewatch it. I haven't seen it in a long time and I wonder what I think now.
Yeah, I watched that as a teenager.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe I'd have a different viewpoint if I watched it.
Yeah. But I think Jude Law's character is great. He's struggling with his like failure, and wow. Before we had kids, we talked to Steve like extensively about like, what's the payoff here? What can we get for if we're just trying to maximize IQ? And this was like 4 or 5 years ago. So I think it's gotten better. I still think it's more fun whenever just sex work, but to have the kids naturally, and it's like a huge pain in the ass.
It is that's the thing. On X, everyone's obsessed with embryo selection, but I know people that went through this. It's not nice.
Yeah.
It's extremely expensive.
Yes.
And for one cycle, you might get like one viable embryo out of this pain and suffering, and like spending $20,000 per cycle. Like, is this gonna affect the human gene pool? Not at all.
Yeah.
Like, this is just a hobby for wealthy individuals.
Yeah.
Like, the people that are doing this or have the resources and the knowledge to do this are already like in their 30s. Like, there's not that many eggs left, and then by the time they do a cycle, they get like one embryo.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a lot? You have like 50 to choose from? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You can make a difference. If you have like 2 to choose from,
Yeah.
are you gonna pay like a lot of money to figure out which one to pick, or like what's the point? I just don't. It's like, in terms of like impact to society, it's like way overblown on X, and I think people just don't understand the practicality of the types of people that have the money to pay for this, how many eggs or embryos they even get, and how many they can even select from.
Yeah. They're not like 18, 19, and then they've got like, the $1 million, and they're just
Maybe
like,
there's like one billionaire that has some sort of
yeah.
breeding program, but like, is that going to affect the human race?
Yeah.
No.
And not in these timelines. No, the kid has to grow up. But yeah, I mean, I would love to make a whole Egg Maxers documentary, but like some of these Egg Maxers, they're just like, they're so devoted, and they have like the group chat. I don't know if you know any of these people. I'm not gonna.
Probably. I mean, they're all like, they'll maybe get like 10 to 14 eggs per cycle, and then when you actually go to like fertilize them, that's when the drop off happens.
Yes.
So you're only going to be left with 2 in a good best case scenario.
Yeah. I forget if some of them have like 100 or something. They've just like done so many cycles.
Yeah, but it's horrible.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I know.
I think people underestimate how horrible it is.
Yeah.
I have good friends that have done it, and it's horrible.
Yeah. This also brings me to, I didn't attend the reproductive conference, but I went to hang out with people, and then I talked to a lot of these reproductive conference guys who are all very like, having the super babies, and I asked them like, oh, how many kids do you want? And they're like, I would just have 14 kids or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, are you like dating someone? Do you have any kids so far? And they were like, oh no. And so I do feel a bit elitist of like, I had kids, I'm raising them. And then these people are like big talk about like having 50 kids.
I get this a lot. Actually, I had this hilarious conversation at like a Cryonics event, and we're kind of like shit talking each other for fun. And then because I sit on like 4 boards, and they're like, well, was it 4 or 5? I don't know how many it was at the time. Maybe it was like, I was sitting on 5 boards, and this guy's like, oh, instead of sitting on 5 boards, maybe you should have 5 kids.
And it's like, what the fuck?
And I'm like, and then I was just talking about my kid and stuff, and how much trouble I had, with him leaping on desks, like punching strangers in the forest and all this. And he's like, that sounds great. I want 7 of those sons. And I was like, you guys are just playing dolls. Like, these 2 guys are just talking as if this was going to happen. He had no girlfriend. Neither of them had girlfriends. They're like my age. I'm like, you guys are just LARPing. Like, you're playing dollhouse. Like, you have no prospects. You have no girlfriend. You have no wife. It's like, I just like laid it on them. Like, they, they were giving me shit. I was giving them shit. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think when you have like zero skin in the game, it's like so pathetic. Like if the people already had a bunch of kids and they're like, oh, we want like 8 kids, or they had 8 kids and then they're giving us shit for having fewer. I totally get that. But when you don't even have a girlfriend and there's no kids on the horizon, and then you're like, I want seven of these sons. It's like, get back to me when you have one first.
Yeah, because he was trying to like be alpha and be like, I can handle any son, like any kind of rowdy sons. And it's like, dude, I don't think you would actually be able to handle this. This is like socially humiliating to have a child misbehave like this.
Yeah, it's really hard. It sort of reminds me of like guys who are sort of incels, and then or they're like in some shitty relationship, and then they criticize like famous men for like Tiger Woods for being with a million women. And then I'm like, well, if you can only barely get one woman or no women, like, you don't know what the temptation is like. So I think if you were in his position, maybe you would act differently and more moral. And there are plenty of men who act very moral and are committed, but like, you're not that guy. Like, it's easy if you have no options to be like, I would never,
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, but the kids thing, I think I love the LARPing thing or the dollhouse thing, because so many of these guys are like, I would have 10 kids, I would have this. And it's like, you don't display the ability to have one kid so far. So
Yeah, exactly.
I
And
think
they're not young either. That's
Yeah,
the
exactly.
ridiculous part.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're like 37.
Yeah.
You're not even engaged. You don't even have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about having 7 sons? Like,
Yeah.
like my son, that's completely crazy at that point.
Yeah. And then so many of them will talk about like those guys will constantly criticize women's fertility or whatever, and then talk about men can have kids, super late, but they're still haven't had any.
There's also still a degradation of
Yes.
sperm quality as well.
Yeah.
They need to have the foresight to freeze their sperm at a young age, and it's so easy for guys. But guys are like less conscientious than women.
Yeah.
So they're even less likely to freeze their sperm when they're young, even though it's way easier. Like with women, they have to like inject themselves with like hormone, like I don't know, like 100 plus times, and then go through like a surgical procedure that sucks. Just to get like maybe 15 eggs tops.
Yeah.
You can have all the sperm that you want just from going a few times. It's like
Yeah.
it's easy.
Yeah.
And they still haven't done it.
Yeah. So I think I think it's funny and sad. Or you can just like spin up all these fantasies when you don't have anything and don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're just high in openness. I think before I had kids, I was like more open to like if I would have ever thought about being a sperm donor, but like after having kids, I think it'd be weird to find my kids out there and then they like, I'd be curious.
Oh, I don't know. What if it was like there's a shortage of HAPA male sperm? Like you can help society by giving them your sperm, and it's actually not even a big deal.
Yeah, if I really thought it was helping society and they needed my sperm, but I don't know. I think it'd still be weird to have my biological kids running around, and then I'd wonder.
I guess I just don't care at all. I don't know. Maybe I should.
But wouldn't you be
That's
curious?
weird.
Like, would you want to go check up on them?
Probably.
Yeah.
I would be interested.
Yeah.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah. To see all the little kitties running around.
But I don't feel like I need to be the one raising them per se. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that part. I think it'd just be more meaningful or psychologically impactful than I thought before. Whereas, like, before I had kids, I thought, like, okay, yeah, they're just running away. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm not even thinking about it. But now I'd be, like, curious, like, what are they up to? But, I mean, as long as they have, like, nice parents or whatever, I think that'd be fine.
Yeah, but the people that adopt, like, embryos are usually pretty well-resourced, I think.
Yeah.
And really want to have the kids,
Yeah.
so... Yeah, I don't know. I just, I realized that I need to protect my mind space. So I need to only think about preserving brains, AI alignment.
Yeah.
Certain things I just completely don't allow into my mind space. Sports, ridiculous nonsense, like whatever stuff he's sending me. Like if he sends me a YouTube video, there's no chance I'm watching it. I just try to like protect myself from celebrity gossip information. I just have to like utilize all the resources in my mind towards the task at hand.
These are the real info hazards for you.
Yeah, basically. I don't know if people are like so cognitively like or cognizant of them protecting their own mind space, but like I am.
Yeah.
Like I am profoundly ignorant in certain areas of human endeavor that most people would know. Like I don't know anything about hockey, even though I'm Canadian. I don't know the jersey number of Wayne Gretzky. I just don't know I'm profoundly ignorant in many areas, but I kind of like want it that way.
Yeah.
Because I only have so many resources that I can use.
I agree. I wish like I'm gonna write a post about how I wish I was less broadly curious, because it's been like a huge fucking waste of time. Like I'll walk by something and I'll be like, I wonder how this building got here, or like why is this thing the way it is? And then I'll spend like a huge fucking waste of time like researching it and trying to find the answer. And I'm just like, I could have been doing something else. Like I could have been more focused.
Yeah, I read Wikipedia. I go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole
Yeah.
sometimes. I waste a lot of time, and maybe that's why I've become more guarded.
Yeah.
That's why I don't really go on X, because I spiral
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
Even Ayla herself is an info hazard for me. I can't follow her.
Really?
Yeah, because she writes about stuff like weird sexual stuff, and I'll go into that. And like, she actually made a post that I wanted to comment on, but I didn't end up commenting on it. But it's actually relevant to how I live my life. She said that, do people feel harmed by information, and why do they think this? Like, why? I do actually feel harmed by information. Like, before following Ayla, I didn't know what a fluffer was or a goo tape. But all this is completely useless to my life.
Yeah.
Like, I could just go down this rabbit hole and learn about all these sexual terms that now I need. Like, for what really in my mind is not helpful for me. So I do feel harm. But I also feel harmed by stories within X. Like, just deranged stories that have a negative emotional effect on my day. Like, I read one story that was just like kind of disturbing. It was about someone who was kind of insecure about their manhood size, like the penis size, and they went on a forum for people that appreciated that size, and then they found a kindred spirit that would just give them affirmations or love of that they had a small, manhood. And then eventually they revealed themselves as a pedophile who liked child penises and said that their penis looked like a child's penis, and that's why they were attracted to them.
No, now you've spread this info hazard to me.
You can cut it out.
Oh no.
Anyways, stuff like that. I feel genuinely harmed by this because it was so like.
Oh my god, that's so fucked up.
It's so fucked up. I'm like, wow, I need to log off X and just never log in again.
I'm sorry, I'm traumatized by this.
Yeah, see, you feel traumatized, but like, this is a good example of what I'm talking about.
Yes. Do you have OCD, or do you feel like you have any OCD characteristics?
Probably, yes.
Yeah, because when I was a kid, I didn't know what I had. Like it was actually helpful for me to discover what OCD was, but I would feel like I would hear stories or like lock onto imagery and feel like very like ruminate on it and like, oh wow, this is really fucked up or gross or something. And I think that people...
Sorry, did I do an info hazard?
No, you did, but it's okay. I think it's...
You can handle it.
Interesting and fucked up. I can handle it, but I think... Yeah. I think I'm harmed by these things because of my OCD. Like, I'll ruminate on, like, fucked up shit.
I'd rather not have heard... I'm sorry for the... I'd rather have not read this stupid story on X, because it was messed up, and I feel like it didn't help my mind space in any way, and, like...
But I wonder if it's because other people are less harmed because they don't have this OCD-like characteristic of ruminating and thinking about it. And it's just like, oh, they forget about it and they don't care. But like, I'll be thinking about this horrible. But like certain things I think I feel really bad or icky about, like primal red pill shit. Like, oh, guys that are losers and they just never like, or it's just better to be smarter, taller, stronger, more sexually attractive. And it's just like, that sucks. And it's just like, I'm like, oh, these narratives suck. Or like this story.
This story is terrible. Traumatic.
Yeah. Or like guys with small dicks, it's like, it's such a shitty situation because society uses it as a proxy for everything else. So they'll make fun of their like, oh, you have a small dick. And then they're getting like collateral damage because like, oh, they don't drive a big truck or whatever. But now people who are losers or assholes driving a big truck, or they're like, oh, I hate Trump. He must have a small dick. And then this guy's like, well, I have a small dick and I'm a nice guy. But then he's getting made fun of, or there's such a narrative around like, that sucks.
Yeah. I want to say I understand this, but I think I don't understand this.
Yeah,
because I'm not...
You don't understand this.
I actually don't understand this.
You don't understand it.
I guess I can maybe do like on a primal level understand it because my friend, okay, so I was in a girl's house, right? So, we kind of like have our own social interactions, but because I was kind of thinner, like other girls, like my girlfriends would kind of make jokes about how I just was kind of flat chested. So, I can kind of understand that insecurity, I think, for guys, but I think for guys is even worse than that. Worse than being like kind of flat chested or whatever.
I think it's much worse because like your penis size is so important and it's functional. Yeah. So like I get like, I've known lots of women that are like insecure about their chest size, and even barring the ability to just like get fake boobs and maybe sort of half solve the problem. For a man, his penis size is like functional. So A, it has to function, and B, the size is relevant to performance up to a certain point. Yeah. And so...
But it's more hidden, like with chest size, it's kind of out there,
No, I know, but that's even... To me, that's almost worse because I've talked to a bunch of girls about like, you don't know what's going on down there, and then the guy is like waiting for this reveal, and how is she gonna react? And so like you don't even know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And then guys with small dicks are like, oh my god, like, and there's horror stories of the girl like laughing or like being like, this isn't gonna work, or
Oh, that's dark.
so
So, yeah, I mean, that story that I just told you, the info hazard story, I can kind of empathize with the guy because he's already like insecure about himself and he's finally found someone who validates him. But then it turns out the person who validated him just like let out this horrible thing that
it's
he'll
like the
never
validation
recover
of
from.
his worst fears about like, yes, it's like a
Just
child,
worse
and
insecurity.
that's why I like it. And then I'm a fucking pedo. That's like,
This is like the worst thing I've heard like in a week
Yeah.
or 2 weeks.
so is this recent, the story that you heard? Oh my god, I'll have to look it up now because now I'm like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
I love this topic though. Like this, like we got into this weird, but info hazards are a real thing.
Yeah, they are.
This
I
is
feel
like
like
a
that's
real-
an info hazard, yeah.
Yeah,
That story is just so messed up that like
yeah,
you just feel bad for the person but then you feel like disturbed because there's some psycho out there like doing that psychological harm to people.
yeah. But maybe from his point of view, he was just trying to show this guy his.
You should have never told him.
Yeah, I know. He should have just kept it going. But then, he can never be his authentic self. But at least the guy was an adult, I guess. It could be worth it. This whole thing is fucked up. I'm just like, I'm trying to cope with this fucked up story. It's like this anime, I think English anime that, or like American, that is about mind uploading and all this stuff. So it has some interesting, relevant themes.
No, I haven't. Maybe I should be more concerned about S-risk in the mind uploading scenarios. But I feel like S-risk that we understand is not the full extent of S-risk in the future.
No.
Anyways, so I do really think that biostasis does expose us to like a greater level of S-risk.
That's true.
But I'm going in this eyes wide open, so
Yeah. Well, I think
maybe I'm a gambler.
I'm more open to like biostasis because I'm also don't want to die. And I think that the S risk is low enough to like be pro biostasis, but for mind uploading, then I wouldn't be sure. But at Michael's talk, it didn't inspire a lot of confidence because people were asking about that. He's like, oh, we hope to find solutions and figure it out. We're totally open to things, but I think these are like really tough problems. But it'd be cool to have like a heaven-like environment. But yeah, you should check out Pantheon.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting. I was at MATS, the AI safety program. It's called like MATS.
Matt.
I forget what the acronym stands for, but some new graduate of MATS was really excited, and he was talking to me about AI safety related like fiction media, and then he was really excited about Pantheon. But a lot of people who went to Michael's Fly mind uploading talk had seen Pantheon, and they were like, discussing it. So I think it's pretty good.
Okay.
I mean, it's imperfect, but like for anything talking about these subjects, it's like that's pretty good. And you've seen Vanilla Sky, right?
Yeah, I know. You know what's crazy? The title of the documentary I'm in is a line from Vanilla Sky, a movie I haven't even seen. So documentary about me. The title of it is Relax, Open Your Eyes.
Yeah.
From Vanilla Sky.
Yeah.
A movie I haven't even seen.
Okay, this is a poser. We need to. You have to watch it.
I
It's
know.
2 hours.
I know, but I will. Wait, I'll
It's
probably
like-
forget about this immediately.
It's not an info hazard. You gotta,
Okay, apparently it's a good movie. I've heard about it.
and it's very relevant. It's the title of your. You're not like curious, or how come? You're just like, I don't get anything out of watching this movie.
No, I mean to. But then
Do
like
you?
when I actually go out the door, it's gone. Like
But you're capable of doing all this other high agency stuff. But maybe if it's not direct.
no, I think that in some ways I think I have like a high level of disability for my autism.
Yeah.
Like I don't have much of an internal dialogue. And not only that, I have aphantasia.
Ah.
So I have both like not much of an internal dialogue and aphantasia.
So when you're thinking of an apple, it's like an abstract.
I think I actually have thoughts and images, but I don't have the quality of them. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
It's weird, but I can rotate shapes, but I don't like visualize it when I'm doing it.
That's so interesting.
Is that weird?
Wow. You're weird.
It's weird.
That's
right?
weird. There's like some other sensory thing going on there for you to be able to do it but not visualize it.
Yeah, I feel it. I don't know. I feel it. But people accuse me of being a philosophical zombie, but I'm accusing some of these chemopreservationists of being philosophical zombies because they don't care about their quality.
Yeah.
They don't care about
At least
getting
you're a pew
killed.
zombie that cares or purports to care about.
Yeah.
Very
So I'm
interesting.
like, in some ways I understand that some people might think I'm a philosophical zombie, but then at least I have like a lot of qualia.
Yeah.
So I think about my qualia a lot. Like when Robert McIntyre, or I guess Aurelia Song, formerly known as Robert Mac, I say that name because he was at
I know.
interview with Bob
I
for
know.
3 hours.
I
It's
know.
a 3-hour interview because she seems very interested in going to Mars.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
some of the best experiences I've had are just, I guess all good experiences are internal, right? So some of the best experiences I have are just sitting quietly at home enjoying some music. I have quite a lot of appreciation for music. I have like quality that other people don't have. Like I have frizzen, I have like
Oh, yeah.
goosebumps, like the hair goes up
Yeah.
like on my arms and body and stuff. It feels like fantastic. I have really fantastic positive emotions a lot, but also very negative sometimes, but just I feel like, I don't need to, like, the gain I would get from going Mars, it would be significantly less than trying to expand the structures of my mind to experience better states of
Yeah.
space than I currently do.
Yeah.
And I've attempted this through psychedelics, but I've mostly been extremely unsuccessful.
What have you taken?
MDMA was disastrous for me.
What? Okay,
It
you're
was like
weird.
disastrous? Yeah.
It's amazing. What was it like? Like, what was your experience?
Oh, it was so bad. It was so funny, but it was so bad. Like I was with my friends and we were gonna test the drugs with our testing kit, right? I was actually in San Francisco, funny enough. And I was like, okay, we're gonna do it. And then what ended up happening was I felt this internal cold that was so cold that I'd never experienced cold like this in my life. And I had been outside in Canadian winter in like negative 30 degrees wind chill or something like that, but it felt so cold, like it was emanating from inside cold. So I'd basically spent like 3 hours wrapped in 3 blankets, like afraid to move. My friend was like, "Do you want to run your hand underneath the warm water?" And I said no, because I was too afraid to get out of the blankets.
That's really weird.
But MDMA affects your temperature perception, right?
Well, I've never
makes-
heard of this.
It usually makes people feel warmer, not colder.
Yeah, you have like the Waluigi effect with your temperature. Did you test the MDMA?
Yes, it was MDMA.
Okay, so you took MDMA and then you were trapped under blankets. That's
3
crazy.
months.
And then did you feel like did touch feel good? Did you feel more empathetic with people?
No, not really.
You were
Well,
just
no,
fucking
I were just
crazy.
like listening to some music. That was okay. That was good. But I already get like so much positive emotion out of listening to music that I don't really like. I don't know if I can actually boost it
Yeah.
more than if it's already high.
Have you ever taken mushrooms or acid or anything?
No, I've never really successfully taken mushrooms. I bought mushroom chocolates from somebody like years ago, but I don't think they worked.
Okay.
I like CBD to relax
Yeah.
sometimes. THC is terrible too. It just makes me feel stupid and has no other effect.
Yeah.
LSD was like such a disaster. I can't even. It's hard to describe how negative it was.
Like you were scared or you were
It was like almost like the face melting kind of experience, the bad
Yeah.
trip where you think that you're just like so afraid, but like you're afraid like if the friend leaves the room that you'll melt in the floor
Yeah.
and cease to exist.
Yeah.
Like I felt close to ego death, but also extreme terror.
You must have taken a lot, or maybe you're sensitive.
Oh, yeah, maybe I'm really sensitive. I didn't take that much, and I tested it too. And but it's also debilitating for me. So like, I'm like, wow, this is going bad. And but also extreme terror and inability to scream, even though I want to scream.
Wow, you have no mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It was so bad that I don't think I would do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the most scared I've been in my life. I'm like a kind of not easily like I'm not scared usually.
Yeah. I think there are some similarities between maybe the OCD characteristics or some neuroticism, but psychedelics are so powerful, and I think that normie people can have like just a reasonable trip like without trying. But I had a super bad, terrible experiences when I first took LSD, and I took a high dose, and
What happened?
we wanted to watch Alice in Wonderland, but we didn't have it, so we started watching The Emperor's New Groove.
Mhm.
Have you ever seen it? It's like a Disney.
I heard about it. I haven't seen it.
Okay, it's like a Disney, movie. And I was filming this whole experience, and you can see on my face when I start going into like a bad trip. And I was just like constantly worried about, like, I had these OCD ruminations about like I'm gonna jump out the window. I'm gonna like I had like just super bad panic, and worry about death and all of these things like for a very
Did it feel like a near-death experience?
I wouldn't go that far. I think you had an even more extreme.
How, really? I
Yeah.
felt like I've never felt like I never had a near-death experience, but I would characterize a bad LSD trip as a near-death experience.
Was a near death experience mean to you like a panic attack type, like an extreme, like you
Like I
feeling
felt
like you're dying?
like I'm about to die.
Okay,
Or
I
wait.
did have some of that.
Yes,
Some,
so you did.
yeah. So, but I do think there are techniques you can do to like get out of a bad trip.
Yeah.
But I still think some people are just very prone to and especially schizophrenic people should not take.
Oh, yeah.
No, you're not schizophrenic, but
Yeah, I would not roll that die again
Yeah.
after that. Yeah.
it's really, I mean, they can be profound. Like explaining it to someone who doesn't get the time dilation and like how distorted things are, it's like hard to explain, like to somebody who hasn't taken LSD, how powerful and profound.
Yeah, honestly, after LSD, I was like, you know what, my baseline quality is excellent. I feel more grateful for my life as
Yeah,
it
yeah.
exists. Yeah,
Well, they can have antidepressive effects though.
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
For me, there's.
Yeah.
Who do you think is the smartest person of all time?
Oh, it's kind of an interesting question.
That's one of my standard
Yeah,
questions.
smartest person in like what dimension, like music or?
Well, it's up to. Part of it is how you answer, or what you think. Oh, before we get to that, speaking of music, I saw Nine Inch Nails live, and I was thinking of you.
Really? What do you
Yeah.
see them?
Maybe in March at the Chase Center in Francisco, and they were really good live.
It's amazing.
Like, wow.
Yeah, I had an unhealthy obsession. in
I know
high
you're always
school.
posting.
I don't know. It would be probably alarming to post how many times I've listened to like the Downward Spiral in high school. Like I don't even know how as a functional person, to be honest. I would spend like 80% of my time like just screwing around online and listening to Nine Tales, and then like 20% time being a useful human being.
Yeah. Are they your favorite band?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And what's your favorite song?
Oh, that's too hard.
Okay. Did you like their set list in this last?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I was a little bit sad that they didn't have anything from the Fragile, but I really appreciated the Downward Spiral.
Yeah.
And a few songs from Pretty Hate Machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite album's hard to say. It's hard to say. That's a very difficult question.
Yeah.
But probably Downward Spiral.
It's not bad. It's pretty.
What's
good.
your favorite?
I think maybe Downward Spiral. Like,
I like the Fragile a lot too.
yeah. What other bands do you like, or
Um,
artists?
I like Avenged Sevenfold a lot.
Oh no.
Did
Did you ever go to Warped Tour?
No.
Okay. You know what that is?
No.
It's like all these emo bands who got together in like the 90s or like 2000s, and they went on tour. So, my best friend in high school went to a bunch of these things, but Avenged Sevenfold was.
Yeah, I like a lot of Canadian bands that Americans haven't heard of either. Like Mother, Billy Talent. I started listening to like Metric recently too. Because a lot of like bands that I assume that everyone knows, but then I realized that just Canadian people know them. Yeah.
That's my American privilege. Is like, I assume everybody's heard of whatever band,
Yeah.
or I guess British people can have that too. Okay, smartest person.
Oh, it's hard. I read a little bit about like John von Neumann's childhood.
Yeah,
I think just raw IQ, probably him.
yeah. That's the standard rationalist.
I know.
Yes. Yeah,
It's very stereotypical, but
yeah. He's not bad.
it's definitely out there, right?
Who's the smartest person you know or you met?
That's funny. I met Robert McIntyre, I guess at the time,
Yeah.
earliest song when in 2014.
Yeah.
I remember talking about personal identity with her, I guess him at the time, now her. And I was like really blown away by her work at MIT. You know, the way that she constructed her arguments and just general intelligence was like off the charts.
Yeah.
So at the time I was like, holy shit, Aurelia is the smartest person I've ever met. They'll probably go on to do great things. And then she went on to win the small mammal
Yeah.
and large mammal brain preservation prize, which is like pretty significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is.
But even then, I just don't agree with
I
her
know.
about
I know.
personal identity.
I know. I know.
Or
Well, you
even
saw it.
cryopreservation. But
Yeah.
I like chemo versus cryopreservation. But I think the nature of the disagreement is like twofold. I think that chemopreservationists have a different view of personal identity than the average paralysis. And also our validation approaches are different. Like we
Yeah.
still, like when we cryopreserve somebody, yeah, there's extensive damage in the brain everywhere, but not every cell is dead. Like you can still do viability assays and also functionality assays. And you can't do any of these tests with chemopreservation. I have a problem with that. I consider myself like an empiricist even more than a rationalist. So I want to see it being proven out. Like,
Yeah.
and also the roadmap to revival, they're saying that we need profound improvements in nanotechnology. But what about like this, like,
I think if they're trying to do the reversing,
yeah,
then that would be more. But if you're just trying to do destructive uploading, then it wouldn't be that hard.
yeah. So both methods, apparently, we need like significant improvements to
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. And I think that if things go well, that we'll eventually get there for
Yeah.
either one. And I think it is good to have allies about, being against death in people working in all different aspects of biostasis is good. But yeah, Aurelia is definitely one of the smartest people.
Yeah.
Even if we so strongly disagree about this like qualia thing, but she's updated on AI safety. When I talked to her last, she was like she's less worried. So
She's less worried now?
yeah, than before.
Interesting.
I think yeah, she was talking about she thinks LLMs have like a non-zero consciousness and it'll be fine or something. I forget
Yeah.
the arguments, but
I'm totally agnostic on that. Like it could be conscious now. I don't know.
yeah, for whatever reason I'm not that caring about machine consciousness that much. I mean, I care about it in the sense of like it would suck, I guess, if machines suffered, but I don't know. I'm just like I'm more worried about doom, but
Yeah, for me, I guess my view on preservation and personal identity is that I care about, the stream of consciousness, this qualia, like looking out of something. Like if they make a clone of me, I know that I'm not gonna be looking out of that person.
yes.
I know whatever's happening here. I don't understand how the mind works and the brain works in exact detail, but I know it's working for me right now. So I just want to just reproduce this process and this project
Yeah.
with as much accuracy as possible with the fewest number of assumptions about substrate, about chemical ratios, about any aspect, because I don't want to gamble with my life. So,
How many times have you been in love?
um, 2 or 3?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the standard answer.
Really?
Yeah. Because I've asked like thousands of people. And most people at any age, usually they say between, usually 2 or 3. And it's almost always between like 0 and 4, 5, or 6. And some very, very small percentage of people are like, I'm in love all the time. Yeah, all the time. But
That's very interesting. Yeah.
no. But 2 to 3, I think, is the standard solid answer. Who would you meet if you could meet anyone in history?
Oh, that's really difficult. I wish I put more thought into this question. I might actually want to meet Cleopatra.
That'd be cool. Cleopatra would be cool. Are you into like late Egyptian history or like Rome or?
Yeah, I tend to like ancient Egyptian.
Yeah.
I
Remember,
haven't
the
tried-
pyramids are Cleopatra's closer to now than she was to the pyramids. In time.
Yeah, but she's just such a unique historic figure
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But I guess I have a kind of a interest in, or maybe an aesthetic interest in like ancient Egyptian, like culture, like aesthetic
Yeah.
hieroglyphics and their monuments and their, I guess, preoccupation with trying to live.
Yeah.
was it? I remember as a child, I would just like sign out all the ancient Egypt books and like look at the statues and the gems and the burial practices about how they would like pull the brain out of the nose. And I was like fascinated by that, how they put all the organs in jars. And I wonder if that actually just shaped me as a person, because I was like deeply obsessed with it as a child, and then now I'm like trying to figure out ways to preserve everyone's
I
organs.
just want to
and bones.
mummify people more efficiently.
Yeah.
Have you been to Egypt?
No, I haven't, but I want to one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should go for the eclipse. The total solar eclipse is going to be
When is this?
August 2nd, 2027. I think.
That'd be really cool. Yeah, I actually have other childhood friends who are obsessed with ancient Egypt, and I met another woman in Cryonics who's also obsessed with the aesthetic and the mythology of ancient.
There's something here. Yeah.
Oh, actually, so this is really crazy. So I went to Young Cryonicist, and there's a woman who's in Young Cryonicist. She's a cryonicist, like really long time one, and she studied Egyptology, has a degree in Egyptology.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. She can like read some of the hieroglyphics too. It's pretty wild. Like I would say, like there's a high percentage chance of women in cryonics being interested in ancient Egypt as children.
Yeah. Now every woman cryonicist I meet, I'm gonna ask like, any interest in
Yeah,
ancient Egypt?
Egypt. But also Relia talked about it briefly too.
Yeah, in the talk that I had broken down, that which was why they contacted me. They talked about preserving things in jars and the DNA and all that. But yeah, I think ancient Egypt is just really cool. But I don't think it shaped my cryonics view, but I think there's a non-zero chance it maybe shape some people's.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of stuff. Carrie, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of just never giving up.
Yeah.
I've just had so many like setbacks, but just having the strength to like continuously grind on the human cryopreservation project and never giving up despite challenges, despite feeling like I don't have enough. Like I'm trying to bootstrap my own cryopreservation company in Canada, and I'm seeing like people with more money and doing it, and I'm like, you know what? Even though I have enough to do this small scale thing, maybe it's not as impactful, but it's impactful for me and my life and Canadian people around me. So I'm gonna continue grinding.
Yeah, you seem to have this affect of like being sort of nonplussed by certain things and like just able to like keep going. You know, like they say like a smart AI like plays hard, like it's actually trying to let go. And you seem to have that like determination and fortitude.
Yeah, I guess I'm most proud of just working almost on at every level of biostasis. I've been on cases. I've actually like
You're doing
been at the moment of point
field work.
of people deanimating and helping them carry the ice bath in the car and witnessing the surgery, witnessing the small little details that go wrong and see how hard it is, how like the level of backbreaking work involved. Like when we go for a case, like people just hop on a plane at 2 a.m. Doesn't matter like where you are, what you're doing. You just drop everything, leave your family, your life, and you try to get this done. You work for 10 hours straight continuously, like regardless of how much sleep deprivation you have, and you just keep on grinding. And I've been in this environment and I know like what it takes to actually do this to a very high standard. So there's that. I've been a legal activist and advocate in cryonics for 10 years. I've appeared in a documentary about cryonics I've been doing this for 4 years. They've been filming me for 4 years. I sat on boards. I've invested in cryonics companies. I've done almost every aspect of cryonics, and I haven't given up. And I guess I'm most proud of the fact my determination and my persistence in the field.
How was it shocking when you were first seeing the person and
No, it was surprisingly acceptable.
wow,
Yeah, I was like, I'm handling this
you're
really well.
built different, Carrie.
I'm like, there's a a recently deceased person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and this is fine. Yeah.
But I mean, you're doing good work, and what you're doing, I think, could impact like so many people, based on like, preserving them.
Yeah, I'm trying my best. Like this is probably something I probably shouldn't even share. Like people will phone me and I'll like give them my time and energy explaining like cryonics over the years. But then I got like a phone call from someone whose like family member passed away and they wanted to be preserved, and actually lent them money to like ship their body to Spartan Spring Preservation. Like almost a complete stranger.
Wow.
But they actually ended up paying me back. I had a contract and everything. It was notarized, so they would pay me back, and they didn't. So
But it's a risk.
yeah, most people would do it. I realized that most people would not give a complete
Yeah.
stranger that amount of money to
Yeah.
cryopreserve or chemopreserve their relatives.
Yeah. Well, you've really got skin in the game.
Yeah.
And you're really doing. But thank you so much for talking to me.
No worries.
No worries.
So what did you think? Do you want to go with cryonics? Cryopreservation, is it too weird for you? Are you happy just dying? Would you ever upload your mind? I'm actually curious. Do you agree with me and Carrie about personal identity, or do you agree with people like Aurelia Song, where you'd be perfectly happy with being a copy of yourself that was shut down as long as your memories were preserved? I think these are interesting questions. I think we live in crazy times that there's a certainly non-zero chance that we'll actually have to pay attention a lot to our answers to these questions, depending on how the future goes. I don't take time lightly, and I really appreciate that you stayed here and watched the interview. Thank you so much. Another reminder to like and subscribe, comment, and let me know who else you think I should talk to and how I can do better. Thank you so much for watching.